serious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Angel Reese stinks. Welcome in, everybody. Just getting it out of the way now. I just want to get it out of the way now.
Yeah.
I just want to rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just get it out of the way.
All right.
Right now. Welcome in. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner with you here. We got Jimmy, Casey, Elliot, and Jacob. We are off and rolling here on a Wednesday.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Getting my days mixed up.
Hump day.
Hump day. I see Jimmy has the Reds hat today. He's back on the Cincinnati bandwagon.
That's
I
good.
like it.
It's big.
I like it. You got the Cincinnati hat, the City Connect hat, of course, with the Chatterbox shirt. I
Yes.
like it.
I think the Reds merch would have went by the wayside if they wouldn't have swept that series.
Did you buy the hat during that series?
No, I bought it before the first game I went to this summer.
Okay.
It was the first game against the Dodgers.
How'd that go?
They won.
It's good.
And then
was
how'd the
9-6,
game,
I think.
how'd that series with the Tigers go?
Yeah, you didn't wear the hat,
They
so
went
we didn't
well,
have to look.
I probably, yeah, you're right. If the Reds swept the Tigers, I wouldn't wear it as much as I do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Casey, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm doing great.
You came in yesterday full of energy. You came in a little today, a little flat. We're going to pick you up a little bit today.
Oh, okay.
We're going to pick you up a little bit today.
All right.
Now, by picking you up, it's going to help pick me up. I'm a little tired today. I don't know why. I got plenty of sleep last night. Now, I don't even want to know what people are going to say, oh, he's hungover.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he might be hungover.
I set him up for that one as far as that's concerned. But, Elliot, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really good.
Were you doing half Elliot, half – were you doing a voice
It
there?
sounded like
I
he
was
was
having-
doing James
It wasn't
Madison.
just
Leading into the James Madison.
No.
Were you trying,
no.
like, were you in between? I felt like you were conflicted. Am I Elliot or?
Not everything I do is a bit, guys. I come in here today. I'm serious. I'm not going to make one joke. I'm not going to try to be funny. There's no shticks. I'm going to be serious today.
This is a bit-free show.
Bit free.
Now, it
Yeah.
started out with the Angel Reese thing, but outside of that, it's a bit-free
Whenever we
show.
say we're going to do a bit-free show, those usually end up being our most bit-filled shows.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see if I do it today, but I don't think I will. I think I'm going to be very serious. I'm going to have nuanced discussions about
David Bell.
about David Bell, Elly De La Cruz. So it should be a good show today. I'm excited.
I'm sure we have new takes today.
Oh, I have a ton new stuff.
We do know that this side of the room hates winning. We learned that yesterday,
Well-
but we're staying out of that today. We're staying out
I
of
don't
that
think
today.
I don't think that
See,
was
you
accurate.
say we're staying out of these things, and then you bring them up.
No, I always do
That's
these.
true.
I'm going to get my opinion in quick and then put my arm out. Like, but we're done. We're done talking about it. Like,
Well, that's bullying.
yeah, that's Just to be clear, you heard it, though. Was there little Madison in there? I heard that.
There was a
started to
little
hear
bit,
it.
I think.
I don't think.
Okay.
It
I
was.
don't think there was.
It
I
was
think they're
like.
thinking that you might have gotten so deep in their heads that they think you're James Madison.
I do think they think I'm James Madison. I think that's where
Do you
we
think they
go.
think?
For a moment, I
you
thought
think they
Elliot
think
was
that?
still on vacation.
I think that they think that I might think that. I don't think they think that I am.
They don't
now.
think that you think that
Yeah.
they think that you think that already.
No, but you think that.
Right.
That's a
of course.
crazy thought.
Yeah.
You think?
Good bit.
Jacob. Happy Alabama Wednesday.
That's right. Happy Alabama Wednesday.
Nick Saban on Hard Knocks, and look at you. You're breaking out the Alabama polo.
Yeah, I didn't
like
even
it.
do that on purpose.
Is that from the Cotton Bowl when they played UC?
It
and won
is
by
from
a
the
lot?
Cotton Bowl when they played UC, Jimmy. Thank
won
you
by-
for reminding me.
They won by a lot.
Yeah, we averaged, I think it was 11 yards per carry. It was phenomenal.
Pretty good.
That game was close early on. I mean, at kickoff, it was 0-0.
0-0.
That's right.
And
That's
then
right.
football happened.
Yeah. No, first play of the game, Alabama rushed for a loss. I remember I was like, oh no, this UC defense I was told a bunch about. And then that didn't go well.
All right, we're up and rolling here on a Wednesday. We got a lot more football to dive into here today. So I keep getting this thrown at me a lot about, because obviously I don't know if you guys know this, Cleveland Browns fan.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Cool.
I try to keep that, I don't like to tell people.
I heard you love Joey Votto, though.
Love Joey Votto. I don't
That's what I
hate
heard
Joey
as well.
Votto as much as y'all think, but it seems that's how
You
it's
just hate
framed on this
everything that he
show.
represents.
I mean, he's
Everything he chooses
no
to
Angel
be.
Reese. I mean, come on. I
Yeah.
mean, that's pretty high up on my list as far as that's concerned. But I keep getting asked a lot about my thoughts on the Brandon Ayuk. Why are the Cleveland Browns so obsessed with Brandon Ayuk? And for one, Brandon Ayuk's a pretty damn good wide receiver. I think that's one thing that, as much as we disagree on stuff, we can all agree how good he is. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers, they threw the ball less than any team in the NFL last year, and they have an embarrassment of riches on that offensive side of the ball between Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and yet he still had 1,300 plus receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. I mean, yards per catch, everything was just through the roof. I mean, an elite wide receiver on a team that threw the ball less than anybody else in the league. Okay, and you look at the Cleveland Browns, and they're looking at him, and they have Amari Cooper, and you can say, well, what do they need, Ayuk for? They have Amari Cooper. I agree. I like Amari Cooper, but he's 30 years old. And sometimes moves aren't just made for this immediate upcoming season. It's big picture moves. And I think that Ayuk is a big picture move. The Cleveland Browns cannot draft the wide receiver. I don't find it a surprise at all that the two teams that were in position to land Ayuk from the 49ers are two teams who can't draft the wide receiver position for anything. The New England Patriots cannot draft the wide receiver position. They can't get out of their own way when it comes to that. And the Cleveland Browns suck at drafting the wide receiver position as well. Like that, we talked about the Bengals years ago. They just can't seem, as of late, although Mims does look like he's going to be very promising, they have not been able to draft or develop the offensive line at all, which is why all of a sudden they go and get Orlando Brown Jr., they go get Trent Brown. I mean, they're really heavily investing up front with that offensive line, as they should. It was like, okay, fine, forget it. We can't draft the offensive line. Let's just go buy the offensive line. And that's what the Cleveland Browns are doing. They can't draft the wide receiver position. They are doing everything they can to go make sure that they can use their money to go buy a wide receiver that will be very effective for them in the immediate future. Now, we can get into the money aspect of this, that, and the other, and that could be a topic for a little bit later, but I started looking at the NFL across the board, and I got to give a lot of credit to the Cincinnati Bengals for why the wide receiver position is valued so heavily right now. Jacob has a stat that we'll get to coming up here in just a moment about the wide receiver position that I find fascinating because of how quickly the wide receiver value has just exploded in recent years. But I started looking back. If you go look back from 2015 to 2019, 2020, every team, the model was you have wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. You have an elite wide receiver, and then you just have a supporting cast that you hope can make enough catches to complement your number 1 wide receiver, balance it out with the dominant run game, and you're good to go. The run game's still very much needed in today's NFL, but it's not financially prioritized like other key positions on the roster. That's why I hate when people say the NFL doesn't value the running back position. No, they don't financially prioritize it. They value the running back position. You need a good running back, but they don't financially prioritize the running back position because it's very easy to replace running back production. All right, now some running backs are harder to replace than others, but you see my point. I mean, the Browns lose Nick Chubb last year in week 2, and they still finished the season with the top 10 rushing offense in the NFL. You still need Nick Chubb, but you don't need Nick Chubb as far as that's concerned. So I'm starting to look, what changed? Why did the wide receiver position all of a sudden start to explode? Now, you could talk about the the offensive styles changing in the NFL, from college to the NFL, this, that, and the other. But I got to credit the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals, if you go back to that draft where the big debate was offensive line or wide receiver, do you go Penei Sewell or do you go Jamar Chase? I was on the Penei Sewell side. All right, I was wrong. I have no problem admitting I was wrong. And by the way, Penei Sewell, fantastic offensive lineman. He would have suited the Bengals just fine, right? But at the same time, Penei Sewell would have been a solid guy up front, but does it open up the Cincinnati Bengals offense the way that it ultimately opened up when you added Jamar Chase on an offense that had T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd? I was wrong. It totally changed the trajectory of the Cincinnati Bengals, and they go on to make the Super Bowl that year, and honestly, even with the bad offensive line, we're a play away, all right? We're just a second away from potentially Joe Burrow connecting with Jamar Chase, of all pieces, to win that Super Bowl, right? So you start to look at that offensive dynamic right there, and keep in mind, at that time, Kansas City was untouchable. The Cincinnati Bengals won at Arrowhead in the AFC Championship game, and now everyone around the league is looking at, well, what's the blueprint? How do you stop the big, bad Kansas City Chiefs, the Bengals, Joe Burrow? They did it. How'd they do it? You have Jamar Chase, you have T. Higgins, you have Tyler Boyd. And then you start looking over the last couple of years, the wide receiver market has exploded. Why all of a sudden now, from 15 to 20, teams had one elite wide receiver and didn't really invest into the wide receiver room outside of that number 1 wide receiver, to now teams are doing everything that they can to really, they're very top heavy as far as their cap is concerned, quarterback money, and then a lot of money in the wide receiver room. You look at the Eagles. I thought for sure once they paid Jalen Hurts that there's no way that they're going to be able to keep A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They've extended both. All right, you look at the Texans. Tank Dell and Nico Collins, the Texans had one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL last year. Why did you need to go get Stephon Diggs? Because, well, they watched what the Bengals did. And it's like, do you need to add Stephon Diggs to Nico Collins and Tank Dell? No, but at the same time, it puts you in a position where teams aren't going to stop you. No defense stopped the Bengals that season. They just slowed them down. So you need to be so explosive offensively that teams can't stop you. They could just slow you down. And that's really, the Rams had the best offense or the defense that season. They didn't stop the Bengals offense. They just slowed it down. Look at the Texans. They go out and they get Stephon Diggs, an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver position. The Bears, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, they draft Rome Odunze, and on top of that, the Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I thought for sure once Jalen Waddle got that extension that Tyreek Hill at the time, who was the highest paid wide receiver, that they'd move on from him. No, they rework a deal and they keep him longer. I thought for sure they were going to look to trade Tyreek Hill once they got the contract done with, of course, their quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, but they keep it all in place. I think the reason we've seen the shift in the NFL focus so much on quarterback and not just wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, the Bengals model of elite quarterback with wide receiver 1A and wide receiver 1B and a hell of a wide receiver 2 or 3, that's been the model for success for these teams because you could follow the blueprint of the Chiefs. That's the new Patriot way. You could do exactly what they do. You're not going to replicate the success. I do believe you could replicate the success of the Cincinnati Bengals, which is why teams are so heavily investing into the wide receiver position, not just one wide receiver, but multiple wide receivers. You look at the Niners, Debo, Ayuk, Bengals, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Odunze, as we talked about, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. I mean, my goodness. There is an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver out there, and it's no longer you just need that number 1 wide receiver. You need that 1A, 1B, and I believe that model all started in 2021 with the Cincinnati Bengals. Jacob?
Yeah, and you said it was an explosion of the market, and that's exactly correct. Going into that 2019 or going into that 2020 season, the offseason after the 2019 season, Julio Jones signed his massive contract with the Falcons, and that made 3 wide receivers in the NFL above the $20 million threshold. Just 3. Julio Jones, Keenan Allen, and Amari Cooper. 25 wide receivers in the league made over $10 million. So less than 1 per team. Teams were investing in their true number 1 and putting filler pieces, if you will, around them and hoping that the quarterback could elevate that play. But that's completely changed now. Going into the 2024 season, this season, 4 wide receivers are over the $30 million threshold and 21 are over $20 million. 33 are over that $10 million threshold that was the wide receiver 1 mark in 2020. So you see teams all across the league are investing in 2 wide receivers, and that's not even accounting for guys like Jamar Chase, who haven't signed a contract yet, that aren't in either of these slots. T. Higgins, not over $10 million either. Well, I guess his franchise tag is, but the last couple years, his rookie contract wouldn't have fit in these slots either. So there's a lot of great wide receiver talent across the league that is still not yet reached their extensions that put them in these higher thresholds. So that number is just going to continue to grow over the next few years, and we're going to see wide receivers continue to get more and more expensive, I guess. My question, I think, is when does this market cap out? At some point, you're not going to be able to pay wide receivers $50 million. And with the way this is looking, by the end of 2027, that's what it's going to be. So I don't know where this is going to stop because we've seen that teams are willing to invest in the position. And we've seen it make a difference. The teams that have 2 elite wide receivers are really more competitive, and their offense seems to be better if you don't have that elite quarterback. Obviously, Mahomes made it work last year with limited help. But across the league, the best teams have multiple weapons. So I think it's going to take some kind of crazy offer leading to or crazy request from a receiver leading to a holdout or something like that to drive this market back down. But it's growing at an unsustainable rate right now.
Well, ironically enough, the team to me that set the stage for this wide receiver boom, the Cincinnati Bengals, could be the team that breaks it. I'm fascinated to see what happens with this Jamar Chase thing because I was adamant 2 years ago there's no way you're keeping Joe, T, and Jamar, but because there was no precedent set for that. But now the Bengals moving on from T. Higgins, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But now I'm looking around the league, and I'm like, but does it? Because you have T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, the same way you have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, the same way you have these really expensive wide receivers with expensive quarterbacks around. What I thought was the trend is now going against the trend. So the Bengals who said it are also going against it, which is also fascinating. But, again, that's not a finished product yet. T still with the Bengals, Jamar still with the Bengals. We'll see what ultimately happens. Elliot, your thoughts?
Yeah, the wide receiver market in the NFL is a little weird to me because you have to have an elite quarterback, in my opinion, to be willing to pay that number or anywhere close to it. The Browns, for example, and I don't mean to pick on your guy, but at the same time, if you're looking to extend an elite wide receiver, I have to have a good quarterback to back it up. And no disrespect, the quarterback that you paid a lot of money for, you being the Cleveland Browns, that guy has not showed up. That guy has not been there. He has not been healthy enough to be there. And when he was out there, to be quite honest, he hasn't been very good. So that would be my concern. And as the wide receiver market grows, the quarterback market obviously would have to go with it because it's hand in hand. You can't have a good wide receiver and a bad quarterback, in my opinion. You can't pay that number.
So, Cleveland Browns defense here, they have to keep operating as if Deshaun's going to be that guy he was with Houston.
Sure.
And it's not a win-win, because if he doesn't pan out, that's a big-time problem. At the same time, though, if you're a quarterback looking for a new home, and I'm looking around the NFL, and the Cleveland Browns have a top 10 run game, a top 3 offensive line, the top defense in the NFL, and you have Ayuk and Jerry Jeudy, and you have pass catchers and a very good tight end in David Njoku, I think you can fix that problem fairly quickly. You know, look at Kirk Cousins. If the stars had aligned a little bit differently, if Kirk Cousins, who's wanting out, needs a new home, and the Browns have given up on their quarterback, you could drop a quarterback there, and it's instantly fixed, or at least semi-fixed. Well, I mean, that's what happened with the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers were not a very good football team, and you had Jameis Winston, but you'd give those same weapons. I know they had to add a little, obviously, when Tom Brady got there, but the Bucs aren't a destination spot for Tom Brady if they don't have those weapons in place. So I think you need to operate from that standpoint too. Give weapons to our guy to give him every excuse to succeed or fail, and still have enough weapons there to attract a quarterback to come in, or you have great trade assets to be able to get a bunch of draft picks back as far as that's concerned. Let's step away for a few moments. I want to get Jimmy and Casey's thoughts on this. But yeah, to me, the Cincinnati Bengals, they started this trend back in 2021 during a time that I thought it was absolutely insane to take even though elite wide receiver over an offensive lineman during a time that they desperately needed it. It ended up being the best thing for them, because even with all the team deficiencies, Joe Burrow being elite and an embarrassment of riches of weapons, they've been able to overcome those deficiencies, and I think other teams are starting to see that as well, and they have followed that model. We'll pick up with this more when we come back, more off the bench when we return. All right, and we are back. The Cincinnati Bengals trendsetters when it comes to the wide receiver position. It all started in 2021, of course, when they go out and they add, obviously, the most elite receiver in that draft, of course, in Jamar Chase. You have Jamar Chase. You have T. Higgins, who they drafted in the second round the previous season, of course, with Joe Burrow. And at that time, you already had a very good number 3 wide receiver, Tyler Boyd, as far as that's concerned. And then since then, you started, and they get to a Super Bowl that year, you see teams just heavily invest in their wide receiver room. They loved what they saw with the Bengals. They've tried to replicate it since, and it's really been a movement around the NFL. It's a copycat league, as we know. It's just wild saying that the Bengals set a trend that the NFL started to copy. Jimmy, you agree the Cincinnati Bengals pretty much trendsetters when it comes to the wide receiver position starting back in 21?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just become an offensive league, the National Football League, and you see it with the top teams in the league, with like the Bengals. The Chiefs, obviously, they have had their fair share of weapons. They have Travis Kelce every single year, so he also kind of counts as a receiver in my book. The Lions, who have really loaded up on offense. The Texans, who are kind of a new rising team, who are continuing to load up on offense. Like you said, it's a copycat league, and I think the Bengals, when they took Jamar Chase, people were kind of, maybe more of the national media was kind of clamoring, they should have taken Penei Sewell to protect Joe. And obviously, I think as great as Penei Sewell is, I think it was going to work out no matter who they took. And I think that, yeah, I mean, they set the trend in the league where now it's who can score the most points, not who can stop the other team from scoring the most points. And I think it's become a lot more fun, in my opinion, seeing the top teams who can score 45 points a game rather than hold other teams to 20. I think it's good. I like it, and I think the Bengals are exciting for this upcoming season.
Casey, I know you love your Cincinnati Bengals. You love Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. You loved your Tyler Boyd when he was here. You loved your quarterback in Joe Burrow. But do you agree the Bengals trendsetters, if you will, starting in 21 when it comes to basically building your team around the wide receiver room?
Yeah, I could make the argument that they're the trendsetters of the NFL in terms of how they treat the receiver position. But there's another team, too, right before them that won the Super Bowl. You just mentioned it. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers team, they had receivers all around Tom Brady, and they beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and it worked. Whereas with the Bengals, and I hate to do this to us Bengals fans, it did not work. We lost in the Super Bowl. Now it came down to that
Bengal
final
Bros
play.
get them.
I still think you can argue that it's worked.
It has worked to a certain degree. Yeah, I think it's worked to a certain degree. I mean, we made it to the AFC Championship. Obviously, there's a lot of success there. I would like to see how those teams fare after they've paid the receiver, because I think the difference between the Bengals and what these other teams have done is actually paid the position. We've invested in it heavily in the draft, but yet to see how it works out in terms of the payments. So I'll admit that in a roster construction perspective, that teams are heavily investing in receivers, and I think that is a Bengals trend-setting move. Picking a receiver over linemen, which was just a wild thought back in the day. But I think we've yet to see how it truly will affect these teams moving forward.
So last thing on this, and we'll move on to Elliot's headlines. But at the end of the day, if the Bengals choose to go away from what got them to back-to-back AFC Championship games, which was that loaded wide receiver room, everyone followed their lead. I mean, they followed their lead, but now they're going to go against what got them there. Is that a smart or a non-smart move as far as that's concerned?
They'll go against what got them there unless they use a first-round pick next year on another elite receiver. Maybe the pattern that the Bengals are showing is not to pay 2 wide receivers, but it's to continue to use high draft capital to keep 2 elite wide receivers in there. And that's what I would kind of expect them to do. If one of these late-round picks can blossom into that early-round talent, if you will, like a Burton or what we've seen out of Yoshibas so far in camp is unbelievable. So if either of those 2 guys can really blossom into something way more than their drafted position, I would fully expect them to not draft a receiver early. But if those guys are solid number 3s, I think we're going to see a wide receiver drafted in the 1st or 2nd round next year, regardless of what happens with Jamar Chase's extension, because I think the Bengals do realize the value of having 2 elite wide receivers, and they've had 3 for however long. So I don't think they're just going to go from 3 to 1. I think they're still going to invest highly in that position, if it's not money, it'll be with draft capital.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll get back into that later on if time allows. But with that being said, it's now time for Elliot's headlines.
Oh.
Yes.
Elliot
It's now
loves
time for
3 things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
Let's go.
Wow, what a special day. Listen,
out.
it's was that?
Shout out to whoever you're about to shout out. I'm beating you to it.
I see. You're making fun of me. Headlines. The Reds, they won a game. They destroyed the Miami Marlins 8-2. I will not continue. I swear to God, I'll leave right now. I will leave right now. Did you see it?
No, I was
Did
too
you see
busy.
what they did? This is why I wear hats to this show. This is why I wear hats. Because
I already know
I do
what
the
it
hair
is.
I do the hair thing, and they all make fun of it. I have to do it. I have to touch it.
And
then I have nervous tics. You ever see Rafael Nadal play tennis? He goes through like 10 different things before he hits a serve.
It's exactly
Anyway,
what I've thought is you with
Rafael Nadal.
Yes,
He's the Rafael
exactly.
Nadal of headlines.
now you're making fun of me as well. Bullying.
I love you.
Casey,
You know
any
that.
final quips over there about me?
Punch him while he's down, dude.
Continuing on here, Elly De La Cruz went 4 for 5 with 2 more RBIs, 2 doubles, and a stolen base. Nick Lodolo is now 9 for 4 on this. By the way, I'm going to say this right now. In my Google Docs in which I read these headlines, Trace Fowler is in here. So I don't know if he's going to make a prank. I don't know what's going on, but I see that he's in my headlines, maybe going to edit them. So I just want to make that very clear in
Are you
case
going to Ron Burgundy the teleprompter?
I might, because in case I say something
off,
that I
San
didn't
Diego.
write, I can see you editing. But I'll continue on here. The Reds destroyed the Marlins 8-2. Elly De La Cruz 4 for 5 again, 2 more RBIs, 2 doubles, and a stolen base. Nick Lodolo is now 9-4 on the season. He bounced back from his previous outing, 6 innings, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, and 7 strikeouts. Ty France hit another home run, as did Tyler Stephenson. Tyler Stephenson in his last 15 games is hitting .255 with a .364 OBP and a .511 slug. He has 4 home runs, and 8 RBIs over that span. I see, Casey. Elly De La Cruz in his last 30 games is hitting .300 with a .368 OBP with a .592 slug. He has 6 home runs and 20 stolen bases over that stretch. He has 8 for now. See, now Casey's messing up my entire thing. because now what he doesn't know is that. See, this is why I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do headlines anymore if this is what's going to go on. Casey's name is now interfering with the words that I've written. He is 8 for 10 with 5 RBIs and 5 runs scored so far in this series against Miami. Casey puts in parentheses, I touch, because I touch my
You're supposed
eye.
to do it.
Well, okay.
You're not supposed to read that out loud.
You're right. Tonight, the Reds are back at it where it's Andrew Abbott versus Valente Bellozo. Maybe? Bellozo enters play with a 4.20 ERA. Nice. No, it's not Bozo. I think it's Bellozo. I don't know. I don't know Zo. 4.20 ERA and a 0.93 WHIP in 3 outings. Andrew Abbott enters play with a 3.41 ERA, 97 strikeouts, and a 1.29 WHIP. Other Reds news: the Reds have signed Tucker Barnhart. The return. Tucker Barnhart to a minor league deal. He won 2 Gold Gloves in his time in Cincinnati, and we are happy to have him back. I'm sure he will hit above the Mendoza line. Other Reds news: the Reds will be playing the Braves at Bristol Motor Speedway next season. This was kind of breaking news. I don't know how the dimensions of this field are going to work. I saw Jay Kuda make a joking tweet about it, how it's basically going to be the Polo Grounds.
Times 1,000.
I did see that.
900 feet to center, like 110 out to left and right. So it'll be interesting.
I think we get a rendering Friday, I believe.
We're rendering?
The official release is Friday. I assume there'll be a rendering in there.
Because you can't make the field go out onto the track, right?
I think people don't understand how big that infield is.
Yeah, it's very
But
large.
I've seen it too. They played a football game there. But how wide is a baseball?
I think you
field?
have plenty of space.
I'm
I
pretty
really,
sure.
you can fit Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm pretty sure you can fit Neyland Stadium in there.
Okay, all
Like
right.
it's
Like I know you can pick a football field in there, but I don't know what the dimensions are. So
I think they'll be fine.
I think they'll be fine.
I'm interested to see it though.
Are you going to go to the game?
I'm gonna do everything in my power.
What is the reason for this game though? Like, why are they like? Is this like a new series moving forward? Like
I don't know.
like the Field of Dreams game where every year will be different teams there. Like
I think they're just trying to break the record for biggest baseball crowd.
That's what I saw too. Because
Okay.
there's going
It's
to be
146,000 is the capacity. When they played football there, I think it was 170,000 were there. So we'll see what they do with baseball. I don't know how they'll put stands in. Maybe they'll put stands behind the walls or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect with that. But yeah, I'm going to try to go. 150,000 tickets. Prices shouldn't be that crazy. But
I
if
wouldn't
you're
think
sitting in row 90, you're probably not seeing a whole lot.
No.
So I'd get a good tweet off though, arguing balls and strikes. So maybe I'll just do it for that.
yeah, those are my favorite tweets. You guys
Come
both do
on,
that.
Blue.
It's a free 20 likes every
is,
time.
every
you do
time.
it.
I have a friend who actually does that. Like when we'll sit in section, I think like 4:15.
I've done it twice this summer.
4:15, and you can't see the plate at all, and you'll be like, I mean, that was a ball. I'm like, you can't see it. Moving on, around the league, Phillies bounce back against the Dodgers, winning 6-2. Hair flip. Chicago snapped their 21-game losing streak against the Oakland Athletics last night. Hip hip hooray! 5-1 the final score. I'm very sad that they did not break the record.
Me too.
Very
Me too.
sad. It's almost like this whole thing was for nothing.
Athletics did it to themselves. Played Taylor
That's-
Swift's 22 for
Yeah.
warm-ups before the
That's
game.
what I was. I
Come
said. I tweeted out last night. Did White Sox fans even want to win? Because if it's going to be that bad, you might as well just break.
Well,
the
you know
record.
something
No,
about historic
100%.
losing streaks. What were you rooting
Yeah.
for?
Oh, when the Pistons lost 28 in a row, man, I was pushing for 30. I really wanted them to get to 30.
Losing almost 30 games in a row in an 80-game season is that's something.
That is
The
something.
passion for losing in this room just continues to grow and grow and grow.
No, but it's like, Kenner, you get to the point where it's like,
put you out of your misery.
Yeah.
At least enjoy that. If you're going to be bad,
At
be
least be historically
bad.
bad.
at least
yeah.
be historically bad.
You're gonna
Well,
be the-
speaking of historically
like the
bad,
0-16?
do you think the White Sox can get 16 more wins?
They need to win 16 of their last 46, which at their current pace is not going to happen.
Okay.
But they
Real quick,
could. But they play the Tigers 7 times, so that's
My
7
segment's running
losses.
down, but I'm going to look at some of the games here. Tell me if you think they can win this series. The Athletics, it's 1-1 right now. Will they beat the Athletics in the final game?
No.
Yes.
Cubs at
No.
home,
Sweet.
2 games.
Sweet.
Sweep the
Cubs.
Cubs?
Cubs sweep.
Oh, Cubs sweep. Yeah.
The White Sox won't be doing much sweep.
Yankees come to town.
No.
No.
They go to Houston, play the Astros.
They'll get no hit 3 times.
They travel out west, San Francisco.
Sure, that won't
Forfeit.
go well.
Yeah, that's not going.
Detroit, At home?
At home? Wait, it's a 4-game series, right?
Yeah.
Split it.
They'll probably split it.
2s.
Then Rangers, nope. Mets, nope.
Nope.
Orioles, definitely nope. Red Sox, no chance. Guardians, no chance. They do play the Athletics again. They
At
do have
home?
to play the Athletics again.
We'll give them that one.
And they do play the Angels. There's a stretch where they do Athletics Angels. So I don't know. I think there's a sizable chance.
We'll keep an eye on it.
We'll keep an eye on it. Yeah. Moving on, the Tigers beat the Mariners last night 4-2. They beat former Red Luis Castillo, which is unfortunate because I bet on Luis Castillo. Mets fall to the Rockies in Colorado 6-3. We have the Red Sox winning the series against Kansas City, winning 6-5 yesterday. Astros won 4-2 over the Rangers, but I don't know if you saw this. Framber Valdez had a no-hitter in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs. There was a runner on, so I mean, it wasn't anywhere close to a perfect game. There was a runner on in the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. Corey Seager hits a 2-run home run to end the no-hitter in the final out of the game. Yikes. That's a tough way to lose it, but Framber Valdez, nonetheless, a very good outing. Cubs beat the Twins 7-3.
I feel like the Astros throw a lot of no-hitters.
I think they do, too.
They do.
That would be, their third of the year? Cardinals get a win over the Rays. Brewers shut out the Braves 10-0. And shout out to the Padres for winning 6-0. In other baseball news, former player Billy Beane passed away at 60 years old. Beane worked with MLB clubs to advance equality for all players, coaches, managers, umpires, employees, and stakeholders throughout baseball to ensure an equitable, inclusive, and supportive workplace for everyone. He was a good guy. Very sorry to read that he died yesterday. Olympics. The United States men's basketball team humiliated Brazil 122-87. Joel Embiid laughed at the booing fans in Paris en route to their victory. Embiid had 14.7 boards in just 12 minutes.
He's playing better
in the first half. USA has won each of its first 4 games by at least 15 points, marking the first time a U.S. men's team has done that since the 2008 Redeem team.
Wow.
This
team's good.
Big win. They won by a lot, but I'm looking at this Brazil roster.
Brazil only got in because they blew out the team in the third game and the tiebreakers point differential.
Oh, okay.
So they were 1-2 in the pre-pool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they only got in because they blew out the team at the end.
So you were saying that USA got the easy side of the bracket. So would this be a
easiest
Mickey Mouse
draw
gold
of
medal?
all time. Everyone that is good in the world is on the other side of the bracket, and Canada lost to France yesterday. So this team, I think they're right around minus 1,200 for the gold medal at this point. So 2 games left. They're clicking. They're really clicking. Everyone's starting to play better. They're playing some real basketball instead of just iso ball. It's really, really fun to watch.
That's good.
And the final headline I had for the day is the Patriots have decided they will not pursue Brandon Ayuk.
Unfortunate. I would have loved him not
Steelers
in the
are the front
AFC
runner.
North.
Steelers are the front runner.
Yeah, I think it's a coin flip between the Steelers and the Browns at this point.
I'm really distracted. A lady with a white cane just walked by while texting, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on.
No texting while walking.
Please no texting while walking. But that's the end of the segment.
No, I think she's blind.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm sure she wasn't texting.
No, she had her phone right here texting.
Do we have a Stevie Wonder?
I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to get into this.
What?
I don't know. I feel like
I think
Pats
Jacob's
going
alluding
after.
I'm not alluding. Stevie Wonder's been seeing for a long time.
I feel like the Pats going after Ayuk probably wasn't.
What an
the best idea.
outrageous claim.
But
Jimmy's trying to talk sports, guys.
Yeah.
I didn't
Pay
hear
attention.
him. I didn't hear him say one thing.
Joking
Really.
off over here. My gosh. What? No, Jimmy, let's do a sports show.
No, I was just gonna say I feel like
The segment's
Pats-
over. Please wrap it up.
Respect the radio timing, please, Jim. It's not your first day.
Hold up. Do it again. It was funny. You guys didn't even realize
I
it. He was
saw it.
mocking him. Silent mocking.
Did you think I didn't see it?
I just, no reaction. I wanted him to get the reaction.
That's fine.
Silent. Oh, he's still doing it.
Hair's too long. Need a haircut.
We're off the bench when we come back. I pay my taxes now.
That's good. That's a nice change.
Off the bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Welcome back. Happy Wednesday. Justin, Jimmy, Casey, Elliot, and Jacob with you here.
He's good at the names.
He's very good.
That
at the
trips
names.
me up every time.
I'm always worried that because you guys say that, though, like I'm going to mess it up next time.
I thought I was good at it, and then I messed it up every time.
You're good at it.
I'm not good at a lot, but good with names. There you go. That's where my list stops as far as that's concerned. But I want to continue talking a little NFL. We'll get into the Reds. We'll talk more Reds coming up here in just a bit. I want to tell you why Elly is the worst thing that's ever happened to this. No, I'm joking. We're not doing that.
Yeah,
We're
I
not
hope
doing
not.
that. But, by the way, I thought it was like a repeated stat line last night. Like, that dude is just stupid good right now. I didn't call him stupid. He's stupid good right now. Like,
no one in Reds history has ever had 3 straight 4+ hit games, and no player as young as Elly has ever had 3 straight 4+ hit games. So hopefully again tonight.
Yeah, and who's on the mound again?
Abbott.
Andrew Abbott.
Abbott and versus a guy I've never heard of in my entire life.
I won't make you try to read.
He's played 3 games this season, and if I'm going to be honest, again, I just don't know who he is.
That's why half the time, and I'm like, oh, we'll have the pitching matchups next. I'm like, if I can't pronounce the other pitcher's name, I'm like, I'll just give you the Reds pitcher and call it a day.
Yeah,
Keep it
in fact, I forgot his name. I just remember him saying Bozo. It was something close to Bozo. Bellozo.
All right, sure. Talking a little NFL. I don't want to do who are your Super Bowl contenders, because that could be a little boring. And, one thing we are not is boring, right? Right? We try not to be. Bueller. All right. Throw out these team names. We're going to decide whether these teams are closer to winning a Super Bowl or closer to missing the playoffs. There is no in between. Not, oh, well, this team is good. They'll at least be a playoff team. No. Is this team closer to winning a Super Bowl, or is this team closer to missing the playoffs altogether? All right, so we'll throw out various team names, and we'll all jump in this conversation together. So let's get rolling here. Let's start right off with the LA Chargers. The LA Chargers, of course, they have a new coach in Mr. Harbaugh, all right? The cheater himself coming over from defending national champion Michigan Wolverines, right? They cheated to win the national championship. Harbaugh now leading the Chargers. I do like the hire of Harbaugh with the Chargers, but will it have an immediate impact? Are the Chargers closer to being a Super Bowl winning team, or are they closer to missing the playoffs? Jimmy, are the Chargers a Super Bowl team, or are they closer to missing the playoffs?
I'm going to say missing the playoffs. I think it's tough because they have the Chiefs in their division. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I think anyone but the Chiefs are going to win the division. I feel like I've done that the past couple of years, and it never works out. So this is the year I'm just going to say the Chiefs are definitely winning that division. I just think the AFC is so deep, and they don't really have any receivers at all that are any good, besides maybe like a Josh Palmer. And so I think with the lack of weapons, it's going to be tough for them. I think they are setting themselves up well and for the future. If they'll keep Herbert around, they got new coaching staff, Harbaugh. So I think they'll be good in the future. I just think this year they're closer to missing the playoffs just because tough division, lack of weapons on offense, and yeah.
I saw that Harbaugh wants to use Derwin James at wide receiver. I thought it was wild when Ryan Day for Ohio State talked about using Caleb Downs as a running back. I thought that was kind of wild because of how dominant he is on that side of the ball. I thought it was crazy because you have so much depth on offense. You don't need to do that if you are Ohio State. I know this is the NFL, but you rarely see players play. You don't see players play both sides of the ball in the NFL.
Yeah.
Kind of a typical Harbaugh comment nonetheless. But, Chargers, Jacob, closer to winning a Super Bowl, or are they closer to missing the playoffs?
A lot of the same sentiment as Jimmy. I really do believe in what they're building over there. I love Harbaugh. I think it's a great hire. I love Herbert. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league, in my opinion. But this year they're going to miss the playoffs. I don't even think it's a closer to or not. I don't think the Chargers are going to make the playoffs this year. I do really believe in the trajectory of the team, but they got a ways to go. They're missing a couple big pieces. If they still had Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, I might lean a different way, but losing both of them and having Quentin Johnson, who can't seem to catch a ball, and Josh Palmer battling out for your number 1 slot with Lad McConkey as your 2. All the respect in the world to Lad, but I don't exactly expect a Cooper Kupp 2021 out of him right now. So, I'm going to take the Chargers to miss the playoffs.
It's like, why aren't the Chargers trying to get Brandon Ayuk?
Right.
The Chargers are a team that should be going after Ayuk more than anybody. And if Quentin Johnson fixes his issues, because he looks like a bust right now, and I was high on him coming out of the draft. I was like, man, because at the time when they did have Keenan Allen and everything else, I'm like, you had Quentin Johnson in there. That's another super deep wide receiving room. It did not work out. One sneaky good get for the Chargers in the offseason was J.K. Dobbins. I think that's one that they went low on as far as price, but he could end up providing a ton of production. I liked him with the Ravens. Obviously, injuries have kind of slowed him down. But, yeah, wide receiver is a problem for them. Casey, closer to a Super Bowl team or missing the playoffs, the Chargers?
Much like the rest of the guys have already stated, the receivers, the weapons that they have, they really limit this team. I just can't see them being Super Bowl contending. So they're probably closer to missing out on the playoffs. I'm not as high as you guys are, I guess, on J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards on top of that. They need weapons all around, not just at the receiver position. You look at the tight ends, and it's just a bunch of guys who have been traveling around the league, bouncing around. They're working on their offensive line. I really like their offensive line, how it's been put together. But also Justin Herbert, can he stay healthy? I mean, he got dinged up in training camp. So it's just like this team is just a little ways away before we can start calling them even playoff contenders. So
You think Harbaugh gets him there? To a Super Bowl contender, I mean.
A Super Bowl contender. Yeah. It depends on what they decide to do with how many weapons they decide to give Herbert. If they go out there with only barely kind of investing in the receiver room, they barely invest in the running backs, I have a hard time believing that. But if they do really invest in offense, I think that could be their main strength. Defensively, I like what the guys that they got around there. I don't think you need much there. I know they were really tough last year. They were very undisciplined last year, one of the most penalized teams in the league. I just can't see that happening again with Harbaugh.
Funny enough for the Chargers, I feel like being a Super Bowl contender is easier than being a division contender.
Yes.
Yeah. I think they'll be a Super Bowl contender before they actually compete to win the AFC West.
Yeah. And talked about the defense, Bosa, too. I mean, but he's hurt. I mean, he's always hurt as far as that's concerned. Oh, by the way, when you have Justin Herbert, I do think they'll be a Super Bowl contender at some point, unless there's just some kind of front office malpractice.
Right.
I do like Harbaugh as much as we talked before. I can't stand Harbaugh from what happened at Michigan, but at the same time, the dude can coach. He's been a winner everywhere he goes. I think the Chargers will be a Super Bowl contender. I know we've touched on a lot with the Chargers, but Elliot, anything in there?
Well, I was just going to add on that it's a completely new offense. I mean, Herbert hasn't worked with pretty much any of these guys. Palmer, McConkey. They did get DJ Chark. I think DJ Chark's a fine wide receiver.
He's pretty good.
Will Dissly is your tight end. Hayden Hurst is the backup. Hayden Hurst, good to see him.
He remembers the playbook.
And then permanent amnesia is what he had.
That's what he had.
Not that that's funny. We have Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, the entire Ravens backfield. Both of those guys, or at least J.K. Dobbins, has not been healthy for back-to-back years now. So I don't know. I think they're pretty far away in terms of the offense. And I think what Casey was trying to say is if they do it the Aaron Rodgers way, where you're not going to draft first-round wide receivers. And I don't know if Justin Herbert's going to be that guy to elevate Josh Palmer, to elevate DJ Chark to being a Devontae Adams. I don't see that happening with Justin Herbert. That's just my opinion. Everybody likes to overhype Justin Herbert. If he had this, if he had that, he had Mike Williams, he had Keenan Allen. So I don't know. He's had decent talent with him. He's had Austin Eckler, primarily a pass catching back. So yeah, I think he's had the talent. I think he's underperformed, underachieved. Will that improve with Harbaugh? Yeah, I do believe so. But as of right now, as of this season, they are not going to make the playoffs.
He had a stretch last year where it was 3 straight games with all guys that were undrafted. At wide receiver, and he was still throwing for 300. I'm a Justin Herbert guy. I think he's really good. Obviously, he just doesn't have the resume that the others have since arriving in the NFL, but I think the skill set's there. But at some point, we did that No More Excuse team. Was that last week, I believe, or whatever, and he's right there at the top, no doubt about it. All right, next team, closer to winning a Super Bowl or closer to missing the playoffs. A team I really, really like. Last year, I said this was my sleeper team, and it didn't pan out, but they have everything you need. They have the defense, they have an offensive line, they have a run game, they have wide receivers. It's just the question at quarterback, the Seattle Seahawks. Are the Seattle Seahawks closer to being a Super Bowl team or being a non-playoff team? Casey, we'll start this one with you.
Oh, brother.
Oh, man. I love the Seahawks roster.
I know.
I didn't know this. So why hold up, real quick. You guys gave him the look. What am I missing?
He thinks Geno Smith's a top 10 quarterback in the league.
Okay, fair. Let's start with
Not
Casey.
fair. Don't say fair.
No, fair. I mean,
do not say fair.
He was dinged up all last year. Give him a break.
Big Geno guy, huh?
I like Geno Smith. I like the Seattle Seahawks roster, but I will admit that they are pretty much an elite quarterback away from being a true Super Bowl contending team.
Except when he's top 10.
Except he's top 10, though.
Except he's
what do they
like
need, top 5?
He was top 10 like a year ago.
They need Mahomes.
he got
What
faced
a
last
long
year.
period of time that passed.
Whatever. I said he was like top 12. I said he was top 12.
The thing
Jake
about Seattle,
lost
though,
his
is they
mind.
have every weapon in the world.
They do. They have all
great
the
defense.
weapons.
And a great
They got
running back, a great defense. They have everything in the world. They have three, I want to say, elite wide receivers, arguably bona fide wide receiver ones, at least at various points in their careers. Shout out Tyler Lockett, a little older now. But still, it's the Seattle Seahawks are pretty damn good. I do think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to win a Super Bowl, but I'm going to say they're closer to a Super Bowl than missing the playoffs.
Okay.
I'll say they're closer to missing the playoffs than the Super Bowl, but I do think that they might sneak in this year. It depends on Geno Smith's health. He's been banged up pretty bad all through camp. He missed a lot of practices, so we'll see what they can do to get him back in there. But yeah, I like what Seattle's building. I love Mike McDonald from the Ravens via Michigan. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. He got his Justin Madubuike, if you will. He took Byron Murphy in the first round out of Texas. I think they're going to use him the same way they used Madubuike last year in Baltimore to kind of overhaul that defense and make it look a little different. They have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. I think they're going to be competitive whenever they get that game-changing quarterback, but I think they're closer to missing the playoffs.
To Casey, your point, there was 2 years ago, Colin Cowherd on his show does the blind quarterback resume or whatever you want to call it. And, they had Burrow's resume up, and then the blind resume was Geno Smith's, and they were identical.
Geno had a great year 2 years ago.
But 2 years, but that's why last year was my sleeper team, because I'm like, Geno doesn't get enough credit, but then last year reminded why he doesn't get enough credit, because I thought he took a major step back. But a year ago, I would have been all on your side, but then last year reminded me why they need to go get. I have them closer to missing the playoffs than winning a Super Bowl, but man, they get an elite quarterback like what you talked about. They have every weapon imaginable, 3 legitimate wide receivers. I think it's actually that wide receiver room doesn't get talked about enough around the NFL. Everyone focuses on the Dolphins and the Bengals and everyone else. I think that's a sneaky elite wide receiver room.
They remind me a lot of the Tampa Bay team before Tom Brady got there.
Fair. Yep.
They just really heavily invested in run defense. They were one of the worst teams last year. I think they were 31st in run defense last year. They went and traded for Leonard Williams. They invested heavy on that defensive line and the linebackers. I really, really like the makeup of the roster right now. It's just like if Geno could somehow find that magic again, I think that team is really, really good. I don't know if they can win a Super Bowl, though. You look at the rest of the guys that are in the NFC West, I like the Rams better just because I like Stafford better, and I like the 49ers a lot more. So it's just really tough to compete in that division. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the argument that you had. They might be a Super Bowl contender before they even contend for the NFC West.
Yeah,
so.
I think if you put Stafford on the Seahawks, we're talking about them as legitimately like winning the Super Bowl. So
100%.
They are like a quarterback away, and it doesn't even need to be a top. I guess Stafford's top 10 for sure, but it doesn't even need to be like a super upper echelon guy.
Yeah.
All right, next up, this team, are they closer to winning a Super Bowl or closer to missing the playoffs? Let's go with Jimmy's Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, are they closer to winning a Super Bowl, Jimmy, or are they closer to missing the playoffs? We already know what you're going to say, but it's your team. We'll start with Jimmy. Jimmy, Lions, closer to a Super Bowl team, closer to missing the playoffs.
Super Bowl. I don't even really think that you could say otherwise. I think it's one of the best, if not the best roster in the NFC depth-wise. I think last year they had an incredible year. I think with the offense that they have with offensive coordinator Ben Johnson coming back again this year, I think they'll continue to produce the points per game and all that they did. They have so many weapons on offense from Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in the backfield. One who's kind of more of a power back, the other one who's more of a shifty receiving back. They have Sam Laporta at tight end. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's one of the best receivers in the league, with also Jameson Williams, who I'm anticipating to take a huge step this year in production. I think they've upgraded the secondary, which was their biggest weakness last year, and I think that ultimately they were one ball bouncing off a face mask from probably winning that game in the
Or
NFC
just using the
Championship.
kicker away.
Well, they got a better kicker this year, so.
That's good.
It doesn't matter if you don't use
They
it.
just want you
That's
to.
true.
Use the kicker, you win the game.
Yeah, and Dan Campbell said it best in one of his first press conferences this year. He said, "I don't see bust, I see Super Bowl." So, I think Super Bowl.
All right, fair enough. And by the way, I don't think that's a bad take. I still think, but he did say it very, simple. Super Bowl. Is it as simple for you? Are the Lions closer to a Super Bowl, Jacob, or closer to missing the playoffs?
I think they're closer to a Super Bowl. I don't even have them winning the division, though, in my mind this year. So I don't think they're as much of a slam
It's a
dunk
cute
to
pick.
win
It's
the.
okay. So someone's got to take the cute pick.
I don't. I mean, they're not a slam dunk. Everyone talked about every team that makes a crazy run to the Super Bowl. Remember it clearly with the Bengals. You made a run to the Super Bowl no one expected. Lions last year made a run to the NFC Championship. Very, very few people expected in the preseason. But the sentiment around the Lions seems to be that they're just going to pick up right where they left off. No drop off. No anything. No regression from all these guys that are played well above expectation last year. And I feel like that's very, very unique to this Lions situation. Usually with teams like that, there's a lot of expectation for regression. And not that I think they're going to miss the playoffs, but I think we're going to see this Lions team not go, 14-3, 15-2, like a lot of people are predicting.
Oh, no way.
I think
Yeah,
they're going to
no
fall
way.
back to earth quite a bit and win 10, 11, 12 games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't think they'll win 14, 15 games. I think they'll win 11 or 12.
I saw ESPN predicted 15-2 yesterday.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. First place schedule, too. That's ridiculous.
Well, their strength is their head coach, but also their weakness because his aggressiveness can work against him. And we saw it work against him last year. And that aggressiveness, I'm not convinced that if he's presented with that same opportunity in a playoff game that he wouldn't do those same foolish, might be a little harsh, but like those same, that's a big-time gamble. I don't know. I'm not going to roll with closer to a Super Bowl at that point just because I don't trust the coach. As much as I like the coach, I don't trust the coach in close game situations, which is exactly what you're going to continue to find yourself in come playoff time. Let's pick up with this when we come back. More Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. When we come back, again, we got more teams to get into. AFC North teams, of course, the Bengals, the Browns, the Steelers, and more. We'll step away. More Off the Bench next. The Miami Dolphins, are they closer to being a team that wins the Super Bowl, or are they closer to missing the playoffs? There is no in between. Not, they're a wild card team, or not, no, they're a playoff team, but I wouldn't say a Super Bowl team. No, there is no middle ground here. That's how this game works. You got to pick. Are they closer to winning a Super Bowl or closer to missing the playoffs? The Miami Dolphins, they check off so many boxes. It's weird saying that they're not close to winning a Super Bowl, but I don't think there are a lot of Super Bowl favorites out there. What about you, Jacob? Are the Miami Dolphins closer to winning a Super Bowl, or are they closer to missing the playoffs?
They're closer to missing the playoffs, and I think they might this year. I pick them third to finish in that division. I think the Jets and the Bills are going to be better than they are. We saw what happened with the Dolphins last year. They started off at a historic pace, and it gets a little chilly, and Tua forgets how to play football. So if they can play every game in the month of September and October, I think they'd win a Super Bowl, but that's simply not the case. So, I think the Dolphins are closer to missing the playoffs than winning a Super Bowl by a considerable margin.
What's their why, though?
I don't think they can play in the cold.
Fair enough.
And I don't think they're good enough to get a 1 seed.
His numbers, Tua's numbers, like the first 8 weeks of the season compared to the back half, it's a dramatic fall off. And I know injuries play a role in his decline as well, but even when he's out there in the cold, that's a dramatic dip.
Yeah.
But it's weird because the Dolphins, they have a great defense. They have a great run game. They have elite wide receivers. They have a quarterback that 8 weeks into the season, the last 2 years, has been in the MVP conversation. So that's why, and I love their coach. So it's like they check off pretty much like every damn box for me, but I have to say they're closer to missing the playoffs than winning a Super Bowl because until I see this team perform in the back half of the season, I can't put them in that category. But they're a very weird – that's why that team is perfect for this conversation here because they do. They check off every freaking box, but that trust has not been built there. What about you, Elliot?
I think I'm closer to them winning the Super Bowl. I get what you guys are saying 100%. But at the end of the day, that offense can quite literally put up an infinite number of points at any given point. I know what happened in the back half. They still had a game where they scored 45 points in the second half of that season. They scored 70 against the Broncos earlier on. They have all the weapons. I think Tua's not a bad quarterback. He's a good quarterback. I think he's a franchise quarterback. There are concerns, certainly. I do think he gets worse when it's not warm weather. I think he's one big hit away from his career being over, and I think that would be one of the reasons why I'd be hesitant to pay him. But nonetheless, I think they're still closer to the Super Bowl echelon because I think they're talented. I think all around, defensively, offensively, I think there's enough pieces there for them to get there. I just don't think – I'd never consider the Dolphins to be a bad team. And usually when you see teams that don't make the playoffs, especially in the new format with the added teams, they're not very good. And I don't think I'm going to call the Dolphins not very good because they are. I'm scared to play the Dolphins.
Yeah, people forget a lot in that Cold game that they were missing two key pieces of their front seven as well. Bradley Chubb, torn ACL, Jalen Phillips, torn ACL. And you can talk about how Tua regressed in the cold, and he certainly did. But how do you make up ground in cold games where you can't throw the ball very well? You influence the trenches with a good D-line and a good O-line. Well, they lost Christian Wilkins this year, and their two best edge rushers are coming off torn ACLs.
Might slow them down just a bit as far as that goes. Jimmy, closing thoughts on the Dolphins and Casey as well?
Yeah, I think they're closer to missing the playoffs than they are to winning a Super Bowl just because they're in a tough division. I think, obviously.
Are they, though? Is that
think
a tough
so.
division?
Yeah,
I think so.
The Jets' defense is great. They're getting
My
Aaron
bad.
Rodgers back.
I forgot. I'm not
Jets,
used to
Bills?
I'm not used to including the Jets in that
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
So okay, yeah.
I mean, I think obviously you have the Bills, Josh Allen. The Bills are going to be good for however long they have Josh Allen.
For sure.
And the Jets, obviously, they have Aaron Rodgers back, hoping that he stays healthy. And the Jets can really show what they have this year because I do think that's a really good team, especially like now with Breece Hall kind of getting to see what he's able to do. And Garrett Wilson last season was incredible, and I think it's only up from here for him. So I think that's going to be another good team. So I think the Dolphins, as exciting as they are, I love Tyreek Hill. I think he's not the best player in the NFL, but he's one of the best players in the NFL. So I think they'll start hot like they always do, and we'll see if they can hold on. But I don't quite want to say Super Bowl for them just because their schedule is pretty tough, and it's tough to play in that division. So I'd say missing the playoffs because if the Jets take that next step, then I think you'll see the Dolphins slide out.
Casey, I know we touched on a lot already, but I'll let you close out the Dolphins here.
Yeah, I think mostly just everyone's sharing the same sentiments about the Dolphins. I don't have them as a Super Bowl contender. I think they're closer to missing the playoffs. I like the Bills, and I like the Jets a lot. I think both of those teams are on the up. Maybe not so much the Jets because of all the stuff that's happening around them, all the noise. But Miami's offense will always be explosive. It's always, for me, been more about what they do at the end of the season. They just always seem to struggle, whether that's offensively or if they can stay healthy defensively. Like we already mentioned, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb have both been out on that playoff game that really mattered. But they also have injury history on both those guys. So it's not just a one-time thing. They have a history of doing this. They're injury
But it wasn't
prone.
those guys' fault.
Well, yeah.
The
sure.
back half of this schedule is kind of tough.
Yeah,
the
they have a brutal back half.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is people are saying that their secondary is I'm seeing in the chat here that the secondary has been brutally just terrible at the moment because of Xavier Howard retiring. I think
it's better.
Yeah, I think it's much better with Kendall Fuller
And Poyer.
I mean, that's two elite. Well, I would say Poyer was a elite safety, and he's a great leader in the locker room. And Kendall Fuller, he might be the best second corner in the league at this moment. So
I wanted him.
yeah, I think it's a really good secondary. So that's their one saving grace, in my opinion, on defense.
All right, let's jump into the AFC North. All right, let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh, of course, they're always one of those teams where we just can't put our finger on. Every time we think we have this team figured out somehow, some way, even when they win games, you still scratch your head saying, how the hell did they do that? But the one thing about Mike Tomlin, he has never had a losing season as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. In fact, that seems to be the only thing that they can tip their hat to at this point is, well, we're not elite, but damn it, we're not going to finish under 500. That might be up for debate heading into this season, but then again, we've said that the last couple of off seasons, although they may have been the most aggressive trying to figure out their quarterback situation at this point. The Pittsburgh Steelers, are they closer to being a Super Bowl winning team or a team that misses the playoffs? And this is a team that when they have made the playoffs in recent years, they've barely made the playoffs. So I think for me, I'll start on this one. I think they're closer to missing the playoffs for a lot of reasons. I don't trust the quarterback situation. I think that when you look at the fact that, Mike Tomlin today doesn't make any sense when he addressed the media, said, hey, we're going to, or maybe this was yesterday, saying it's an open quarterback competition, but Russell Wilson's our QB1. I'm like, well, then what? Like, that doesn't, then every team technically, Joe Burrow's QB1, right? But, like every team has a QB1. So every team has a quarterback competition, I guess. But to me, it sounds like it's Russell Wilson's job to lose. And obviously him being out injured doesn't help. But I think this team's closer to missing the playoffs than winning a Super Bowl. At the end of the day, no matter how good Justin Fields can improve this season, that back half of that schedule is just stupid.
Oh, yeah.
So hard.
You want to start starting on November 10th. You're at Washington. You got Baltimore, at Cleveland, at Cincinnati. You got Cleveland again. You're at Philadelphia, at Baltimore. Then you got Kansas City and Cincinnati. Usually in that last week, they're not playing anyone to significance because they have a playoff spot wrapped up. But that just take all the other talking points out. The back half of that schedule is why right there I am counting them out. Not only are they missing the playoffs, they're not a playoff team. I think the streak of Mike Tomlin's consecutive seasons above 500 comes to an end as well.
I completely agree with everything you said, and I'm taking them to miss the playoffs unless they get Brandon Ayuk.
Which they're about to today.
If they trade for Brandon Ayuk, which I feel like is going to happen within the next 24, 48 hours or so, I think they're closer to winning a Super Bowl. Because I truly believe that either of these two quarterbacks with those weapons, I think if George Pickens is your 2, he's a lot better than if George Pickens is your 1. You're comparing him against a lot different people, and you can use guys, Calvin Austin. I know they lost Deontay Johnson, but they have some good, fast, young talent in that wide receiver room. You can play at the 3. I really do like what the Steelers are building. Their defense is great. We've known that. Their offensive line is improving. I think either of these quarterbacks can be okay and get them to enough wins. I think the roster is an 8-9 roster or so right now, and if you add a receiver who's a top 15 receiver in the league in Brandon Ayuk, I think it takes them to a top 10 roster. So I think that they'll be a contender.
What if George Pickens has to be involved in that? Because the one thing that the one thing that the Niners have been adamant on is that they want a receiver in return.
That would change a lot.
So would that change?
That would change a lot.
It has to be Pickens still left on that.
You would need to have Pickens on there for it to move the needle that much for me, or I would still lean closer to missing the playoffs. But I think Ayuk moves the needle a lot for that Steelers team.
Yeah, I don't know how to really judge the Steelers anymore because they always get to the playoffs. They always win 9 games. They're always competitive. But you see what happens when they get to the playoffs, and they lose, and it's not really close. They don't look like they're up to par with a Super Bowl contending team. I don't think they are this year. I will say I think a lot of people have written off Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson's a good quarterback still. I don't understand the hate. He went to Denver, and it was clearly a bad situation when your head coach doesn't want you there from the beginning. So I don't know. I think the Steelers are going to be probably the same thing that they always are, and they're probably going to have a winning record. But similarly to what Justin Kinner said, I think that back half of the schedule is the hardest back half of the schedule I've ever seen in my entire life, and I don't see a way where they're able to escape through that, unless, of course, they're able to get a very good wide receiver talent to help their offense because they desperately need it. But no, so yeah, I think they're closer to missing the playoffs than winning a Super Bowl.
All right. Before we go on to more AFC North teams, I know you wanted to jump in on the Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons, are they closer to a Super Bowl team, or are they closer to missing the playoffs?
I think they're closer to a Super Bowl team, and I have money on them to be the number 1 seed in the NFC this year. I think the Falcons are going to be a great team. I think they have some of the best weapons in the entire league. I think they have the best weapons in the NFC with Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier at running back. I think it's probably the best backfield in the league, and then I would take it over the Lions backfield. And then their weapons with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, I really, really like what they're building there. Kirk, the floor on Kirk Cousins, if he's healthy, is so high. And the mistakes Desmond Ridder made last year kept this team out of the playoffs, and they were still kind of on the doorstep with great weapons. They play in a terrible division. I don't think the Buccaneers are going to three-peat in that division. I think the Falcons are going to be really, really good this year. I have a lot of faith in them, and I really do think they're going to contend for a Super Bowl.
I don't think they're going to contend for a Super Bowl, but Jacob is right with the floor of Kirk Cousins, which is he's always going to give your team a decent chance to make the playoffs. And whatever happens when you make the playoffs happens. So I think there's a chance. They did add Darnell Mooney, which I didn't know. Darnell Mooney's a pretty damn good wide receiver, I thought. Serviceable number 2 for sure.
Trash tight ends, though.
Huh?
Trash tight ends.
Trash tight ends. I'd argue they probably didn't.
Best tight end prospect of all time.
I'd argue they probably didn't know how to use Kyle Pitts.
Let's not forget Arthur Smith with their OC, and he had Cordell Patterson as the number 1 running back on their depth chart going into week 1 when they had Bijan Robinson. So
that's tough.
It's not a great mind.
So not to mention they play in the world's worst division. So I'm going to say they're closer to a Super Bowl, I guess, technically, based on all of what I've just said. But I don't. But for the record, I would never bet on the Atlanta Falcons to win a Super Bowl, get to the Super Bowl, be competitive for a Super Bowl. I just don't think, given the state of the NFC South and given the state of their roster right now, I think they're closer technically to being a Super Bowl contender.
They'll be a really good 4 seed.
Guys,
Maybe.
that's not even the offense that I'm most excited about.
So good.
Their defense was so good. Like, I watched them the entire season because one, I had money on Ritter, and two,
Ritter what?
I staked my reputation on this Falcons team last year, and I said that they were going to be my sneaky Detroit Lions coming out party team, which right now it's playing out exactly how it did when the Lions kind of came out of nowhere. They went 8-9. They were just a quarterback away. They struggled a little bit on offense. Well, now that they finally got a quarterback that can at least be serviceable, this defense will finally be able to shine because they won't have to pick up the slack. Desmond Ritter throwing 2 or 3 interceptions a game, only throwing for 150 yards and having to run the ball all day. They will actually have a full-on offense that's capable of getting this defense breathers. Last year, there was just no breathing for this defense. They had to always be on top of it. So that alone, for me, I have the Falcons as my Super Bowl sleeper. They are my NFC team. I think Jacob and I both agree. They have a chance to be the number 1 seed because
Totally.
one, they play a 4th place schedule, I believe, or 3rd place.
3rd place schedule in the NFC, which divisions aren't very deep.
Yeah, and you play the NFC South. That's 6 easy games. Yeah, I really like
The NFC South has teams in there that I think are going to be competing for the number 1 overall pick. I think the Saints are going to be
bad,
hilariously bad.
Yeah, they're going to be bad.
So I really think they're going to cruise through that division. You got to win. You got to get 3 upsets on your schedule to get to 10, 12 wins, and I think 12, 13 wins is going to get you the 1 seed in the NFC. So that's kind of the rationale there.
Saints meeting with Justin Simmons, by the way.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
They might have the money to do it. That's the thing. He would have to go to get every dime he wants. Probably have to go to a bad team, but I thought that was strange when I saw that. So a lot of people very high on the Falcons. Interesting. I'm not down on the Falcons, but they could be the surprise team, no doubt.
I'm not insanely high on the Falcons. I just think they're in a good situation with the state of their division, which is kind of locking them in as a playoff team, which I guess then they'd be closer to competing for a Super Bowl, but I don't think they're going to be world beaters this year. I think they're in a good spot, and they have some good weapons on offense and a good defense, so they'll be a tough out. So I guess by that I'd say they're closer to winning a Super Bowl technically, because I don't think they'll miss the playoffs, but we'll see.
I don't know what your comment means in there. I won't even ask, but no, I won't.
Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, I see that, but
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Browns, Bengals. We'll weigh in on both of them and the Ravens when we come back. I know that Casey has some ads that we need to get to as well and some housekeeping items. More off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. That's final?
And NBA contracts are
All
really real.
right. Let's do some ads.
Let's do them.
Some ads. Pawnee Water. I didn't finish it because I was busy. But Pawnee Water, healthy alkaline water made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. Uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing other brands use. The result being a healthy alkaline water. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com so you can buy this great tasting water. Love Pawnee Water.
I do too.
Yeah, love it.
I do too.
It goes down the gullet nice and smooth. What do you like about it, Elliot?
For me, it's, well, you kind of just said it a little bit, but it is like some waters you drink it and there's stuff in the water. It's like I'm drinking like bleach or I'm drinking rocks.
I hope you're not.
And it'll go down there. It's just some water brands don't filter out their water. This does. And the water's smooth and it's delicious. And I've got it right here. And it's absolutely phenomenal.
Let's get a swig.
Very well. It's. Thanks, Jim. Let me unscrew the cap. Delicious.
How's that limestone filtration?
You can really taste it on the tongue.
On the tongue, dude?
Just kind of scampers down your gullet.
Yeah, it does.
I'll let that one sit a while. Let that simmer. Yeah, let's move on. Encore, the Bengals report and Reds FC, all the favorite teams around here in Cincinnati, is proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. At Encore Technologies, we deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world. From a mobile computing and desktop support and advanced data center solutions, we help businesses enhance efficiency and
Productivity.
that's right.
You're back. You're so
That's-
bad.
I'm back.
On it.
Yeah.
It's the Reds hat, dude.
Visit encore.tech where your path to innovation begins. You're on top of it today.
Thanks. 2 for
Game
2.
Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And of course, there's always deals going on with Game Time. If you just check out their app right now, there's going to be some great price tickets for the Dragons game tonight. $1. $1.
And they got to sell that stadium out.
Yeah.
50
right.
millionth time.
The preseason game for the Bengals, it's sitting at $10.
I'm going to go to that.
They're playing their starters for at least a drive. Might as well go down there and check it out for $10. $10 for the Royals series. Let's see here.
If you want to go to the next Bengals preseason game, $3.
Wow. Get out ahead of it.
Yeah. Lots of different deals. Go check them out. Cage the Elephant, Riverbend, Benson Boone, the Icon Fest, Cincinnati Open. Yeah, plenty of good deals. Five Finger Death Punch is apparently tomorrow at Riverbend.
You know what they say?
What do they say?
Oh, I don't know. I was wondering if you knew.
Well, you said.
I said, do you know what they say? I have no idea.
You said you know what they say. I don't know what they say. Don't know what they say.
I have a question for you, Casey.
Yeah,
Are we still a UDF sponsored program?
we are.
Of course we are. Can we get a cherry on top today? I just sent you something I want to use at the end of the show, if that's possible.
Did you bring in the UDF Cup, Jim?
Oh!
Look at that.
Look at
UDF
that.
Cup, Spencer Steer.
If it's not possible, it's fine. I just want to play it at the end
They
of the
didn't
show.
have.
Yeah, we can play it.
All right, we
Only-
got something at the end of the show to wrap it up that I want to play.
They
Only
had
one cup
one-
today, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Jimmy, one
He
cup.
walked out of here yesterday like this, with 15 cups in his hand. It was very funny.
They had one Elly cup there, and it was filled like with straws that you like pulled a straw out. And I asked them if I could have it, and they said that they would get fired if they sold that cup to me. So I had to go with Steer.
Had to go with Steer.
Yeah.
I have been going to UDF anytime. So I bought a Ellie and I have a Hunter Green
Very
UDF
nice.
cup, and I've gone anytime that they've blown out. Because the deal is you get to refill for free if they score 9 runs. I think.
Oh, wow.
I got a
Something like
milkshake.
that. You got a milkshake?
Yeah.
You said that weird.
Yeah.
Milkshake.
It was good. They only had Steer,
Goes down the gullet. Nice.
McLean,
right.
and Alexis
and slide.
Diaz. So
If you walk out of the UDF with the Alexis Diaz souvenir cup, see a doctor.
and McLean's not playing, so I was like, I'll go with Steer.
Yeah, but he's cool.
He is cool. But
All right.
All right. Other housekeeping items. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like button. We would really appreciate it. Share it with your friends and family. The show helps us grow and create a great community with the rest of you guys. It helps get more people like you in the chat. So please, again, hit that like button. Share it with a friend. We
And to
really
viewers like
appreciate
you.
that. And to viewers
Thank
like
you.
Thank you. Yeah. PBS. Shout out to them.
No free ads.
Shout
to
out
the
to
public broadcasting system. What are we shouting out NPR next?
Yeah. Also, we
Shout out to
have-
Pardon My Take.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Why not?
We have box lunch later.
That's right.
So
So if your lunch is not packed, we'll box it up for you.
Cool. Yeah, we'll box it
No
up for
worries.
you. And we'll have a nice little entertaining show for you planned out. Not really planned out, but we'll have it for you.
Oh, it's planned out.
sure.
Where's
It's,
Mark?
Well, we'll talk about it on Box Lunch.
That's right.
All right, let's get back to Radio World.
Sure. Radio
Silence.
Don't do tennis sound. Tennis.
That's
Don't-
right. That's right. Oh.
Welcome back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We got Justin, Jimmy, Casey, Elliot, and Jacob.
Woo!
Gotta do that.
You're
Justin,
on
Jimmy,
good.
Elliot, Casey. No, I messed it up.
It's fine. The order doesn't matter. You just got to get the names right.
Valid. We're gonna wrap up this little.
That's right.
This little NFL segment. Save the two best for last, of course.
Of course.
Browns, Bengals. Who we start with? Who do you want to start with?
Browns, please.
Browns.
Yeah, let's
just
start
rip
with the
this one
Browns.
off. Get out of the
Yeah,
way.
let's get the chat on our side.
We've spent the majority of the show looking at multiple NFL teams around the league and trying to decide, is this team closer to winning a Super Bowl or are they closer to missing the playoffs? And there's a lot of really good teams. I mean, the Dolphins probably the most interesting one that we've talked about because that team checks off pretty much every box. Very good very good quarterback, very good wide receivers, very good run game, defense, head coach. They check off every box, but closer to missing the playoffs, to winning a Super Bowl, just because there's so many question marks that still exist with that team. But a couple teams remaining. Let's start with, of course, as we knock this part out, the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, are they closer to winning a Super Bowl or are they closer to missing the playoffs? Casey, we'll start with you on this one.
Oh boy. I'm gonna say that they are closer to missing the playoffs than they are to winning a Super Bowl.
I'm shocked you said that.
Yeah, I mean it's really tough for me to say that. You look at the rest of the division; it's just really tough sledding. You gotta really just manhandle the rest of those teams, and you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to probably split against all those teams, and then your quarterback play is subpar. I mean, we don't even know what Nick Chubb is going to do. I mean, he could be washed. I mean, we were sitting here trying to trade for IU, getting rid of your offensive lineman. I mean, the organization just continues to practice really, really bad team building philosophies, and I don't see the vision.
Just a
I
bit.
don't see the vision.
I'm with Casey on basically everything you just said there. Yeah,
Back-to-back bits?
I don't think Ayuk moves the needle for the Browns nearly as much as it does for me with the Steelers. I have no faith in Deshaun Watson. I put this Browns team in the same camp I put the Seahawks in, pretty much. I think they have some good pieces everywhere. They obviously a really good defense, a good offensive line, but I think you're a competent quarterback away from really being a contender. So I'm putting them closer to missing the playoffs.
Again, I'm not gonna. You're not gonna see me change my answer. They don't do well in the postseason. They've never done well in the postseason. To just imagine the Browns hoisting up a Lombardi, your brain can't really compute it because it's never really happened before, and I don't think it's going to happen now with Deshaun Watson, who is not available to play, and when he does play, he's not very good. I'm just barely over 60% completion percentage. The touchdown to interception ratio is not good because he doesn't play. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. It's a quarterback league, and you don't have a quarterback. Ironically, you paid him a lot of money, but it's outside of that. Yeah, they have a decent roster. I don't hate the roster. If Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback of the Browns, then maybe I'd say they're closer to being a Super Bowl contender. But I can't seriously consider them to ever in any world win a Super Bowl.
Any world.
I don't necessarily think the quarterback's the problem.
You don't?
No,
What else is the problem?
they're in a tough division. I don't know.
Then the Bengals aren't going to make the Super Bowl either?
I don't know. We'll see. I think it's a good roster. I think they're in a tough division. They have a tough schedule, and I mean, it's hard for me to say that they're not going to compete for a Super Bowl because they always do. So
What?
You know what? After this week, you're done. You're done. After this week,
Fair.
no more Jimmy.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's a good team, but I think they're in a tough division. I think they're the third best team in their division, so I'm going to say miss the playoffs.
Well, I'm doing a show with a bunch of homers, so I'm going to be a homer for my team.
There you go.
You're a homer for your team. I'm going to be a homer for my
It's a nice
team.
change of pace. You're taking the Brown side.
But you're not wrong about the quarterback. Right now, I've not seen enough from Deshaun Watson to feel like, okay, they are for sure a Super Bowl caliber team, but I do know that they check off every other box. They have the best defense in the division. They have, from a secondary to defensive line to special teams to offensive line to tight end to running game to everything. Outside of wide receiver and quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, the Browns have a better everything else than the Cincinnati Bengals.
I feel like they don't have the best defense in the division.
They have the
The
best-
Ravens do.
The Ravens do.
Yeah, the Ravens.
That's just statistically not true.
Statistically, the Ravens were the best defense in the league last year.
Statistically, that was not true. The Cleveland Browns were statistically the best defense in the National
that's
Football
true.
League last year. The Cleveland Browns, obviously, you could talk about how their defense came up short in the playoffs. Well, every team that's dominant at something, if they don't hoist up the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year, their strength obviously came up short at that particular point. But the bottom line is this team that they check off pretty much every major box. I have to be consistent here, though. I'm going to put them in the same category as the Miami Dolphins. They check off every box, except the question mark at quarterback puts me in a position where I have to say, unless they get it right with Deshaun Watson, this team is not winning a Super Bowl. But Deshaun Watson doesn't even have to be the Deshaun Watson that he was with the Houston Texans for this team to win a Super Bowl. So he doesn't have to be Deshaun Watson in Houston. He just can't be the Deshaun Watson he's been the last 2 years in Cleveland. He has to be out there. They were 5-2 with him as the starting quarterback last year. All right, and he was actually solid last year when he was out there. Let's just get that out of the way. Is he Joe Burrow? No, not even close. But he doesn't have to be when he has so many strengths all over the place. From the offensive line to the run game to the tight end to the defense, special teams is great. Like, they check off every box. So I'm not being a homer. I'm propping them up more than you guys are, but ultimately saying what you guys are saying. And I have to see something from Deshaun for me to put them in closer to winning a Super Bowl than missing the playoffs. So, yeah, Deshaun, if he's not Deshaun, they're not making the playoffs. But Deshaun doesn't have to be the Houston Texans Deshaun for them to win a Super Bowl. He just has to be not what he's been the last 2 years. So this team,
60% of that, I think, gets you to a contender.
yeah, and like that, this team. But again, they're going in the Brandon Ayuk thing is one of those things that cancels out Amari Cooper. If they have Amari Cooper this year with Jerry Jeudy, this team is still going to be really, really good. Now, you could say, well, why do they need to go after Brandon Ayuk? Brandon Ayuk is a big picture move. Brandon Ayuk is Amari Cooper, you have him for one more year. And then you go back to the drawing board of what do you do for your number one wide receiver. T. Higgins, if you have to get into a bidding war to get T. Higgins, the Browns aren't going to win that war. They have the money to go get T. Higgins. They don't have the money to make him one of the highest paid wide receivers in football. And if T. Higgins has a ball-out year this year, which you expect him to, he's going to play himself out of the price range for the Browns. So they can control this situation. You get Ayuk, you have your number one wide receiver for the next 4 years. That's what this move is about. You don't miss a beat if you lose Amari Cooper with him. Jerry Jeudy complements him perfectly. But, yeah, it all comes down to Deshaun Watson. And right now I have to say this team is closer to missing the playoffs than winning a Super Bowl because I have not seen the Deshaun I needed to see in Cleveland as far as that's concerned. So there you go.
Maybe you have a different quarterback on the team. Maybe you could put in Eating W's Winston.
Famous Jameis.
Or Pro Bowler.
Or Pro Bowler
Tyler Huntley.
You've got plenty of quarterbacks
That's
to choose
depth.
from.
You got plenty of options.
Okay. That's fine.
I don't think Deshaun Watson is. I know he catches a lot of slack for mostly off the field reasons, but I still think he's a solid quarterback and he can produce well enough to win the Browns games this year. I just think that there are two teams in the division that are better.
When he was out there last year, he was good.
Right.
He had a bad game against the Steelers. Obviously, the elements in week one, no quarterback was going to look good in that. Dominated the Titans, then out for a month. Comes back, gets rolling. Didn't play well against the Colts in the first half, played well in the back half, and then, of course, dominates the Ravens, and then is out for the season. So he's never had a chance to, again, on him, right? Like, I'm not doing the whole injuries weren't his fault, Casey. Injuries happen. It is what it is.
Something else
prove
caused
it.
him to miss a lot of games, too. That was his fault.
That was the first season.
I
But,
think
you know?
if you have this, if you look at this Browns team in like the AFC South, I think you're definitely saying closer to a Super Bowl. But they're just in the toughest division in football. So.
Yeah. Deshaun, by the way, if Deshaun pans out, they're better than the Cincinnati Bengals, and I really don't care what you guys have to say about that. Y'all have your opinion, that's fine. We can go down group by group. The Browns, outside of quarterback and wide receiver, the Browns are better than the Bengals at every other position. You look at all the rankings that go out there as far as the best rosters, and it's better. You have to produce. I get that. Roster-wise, the Browns have a better roster than this. They have the best roster in the division. But, again, it all comes down to quarterback as far as that's concerned.
Fair. Yeah, I'm not going to give you any pushback on that, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, arbitrary argument. You can't really combat it.
You can't argue facts. I mean,
Well, yeah, if you guys had a top 3 quarterback, which is the toughest thing to get in the sport, then you'd be better. True.
roster-wise, though, better than the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right, but you don't have a quarterback, so it's worse.
They have a quarterback. He just has to go out there and stay healthy.
I don't think Deshaun being the 15th best quarterback in the league would make the Browns better than the Bengals.
He doesn't have to be a top 10 quarterback for them to be better than the Cincinnati
See, I think he
Bengals.
does. That's where I disagree.
Well, I mean, again, if that defense for the Bengals doesn't improve, I don't care how damn good Joe. I don't care how deep the sea is that he walks on. I mean, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals will not win a Super Bowl if that defense doesn't improve and that run game doesn't improve.
Run game after Burrow went out and they played more under center last year was number 1 in the league, I believe.
Correct.
Yards per play.
Yeah.
So that run game was good. The second worst
Yeah.
run game in football last year was good.
I think the run game was pretty good. Yeah. When you don't run the ball the first 5 weeks because your quarterback can't line up under center, it's going to affect the overall stats.
Interesting. Okay.
Browns have made the playoffs 4 times since 1994.
And the Bengals didn't win a playoff game for 30 years, and they made it to a Super Bowl. So I don't know what you want me to say about that.
I mean,
the Bengals. They had
anything
a
can
stretch,
happen.
but the Bengals were always good, though.
Yeah.
And
We've won the division.
We're going to the playoffs.
And that did what? The Browns are good now.
They are.
I mean,
Yes, the Browns are
to
good
be
now.
totally fair, like you saw the exact same thing you guys are kind of making fun of them for happened with the Lions last year. They
Lions invested a lot into the team.
yes, they did. But
I think the Browns have invested a lot into a player that's actively
Yeah.
hurting the team's success.
Look at what the Browns.
I'm just saying the,
Browns
Lions
have
never
spent-
won the division and they never won a playoff game for 30+ years, and it eventually happened. So
How have the Browns not invested? They have at one point they had the highest paid cornerback in the league, obviously with Denzel Ward.
Yeah.
All right, you go and you get Smith to the defensive line. You have Myles Garrett. You've paid him. I mean, who
I don't
have
think
they
any
not
of that
paid?
matters
They've
without a
paid the
quarterback.
offensive line. They've paid wide receivers. They've paid the quarterback. What,
I've
and that
always said I think
quarterback-
it's a bad move to extend anyone to a major contract without the quarterback figured out. And I think all these contract extensions with Deshaun
Well,
still a
then
quarterback
you
is
look
a
at
bad
last
move.
year. Quarterback goes out. You drop in another quarterback, and the team just keeps going. I would argue that.
And that got you.
It got them to 12 wins, and it got them to have a chance. They were a Super Bowl contender last year. What do you
They
want
were
from them?
never a Super Bowl contender with Joe Flacco. Ever.
Oh my effing God! How can you say that they were not a Super Bowl
They got
contender?
ran out of the playoffs.
But all teams, unless you hoist up that trophy, get beat in the playoffs.
I don't
What
think
are you
anyone
talking
other than
about?
Browns fans thinks the Browns were a contender for the Super Bowl.
Did you
last
watch
year.
anything other than we got to blow the Bengals podcasts and everything out there? If you watch any national shows, and I don't even listen to local media shows in Cleveland, even the national shows were super high on the Browns last year. Joe Flacco
it
was
gets
the best
clicks to
story
believe in a
football.
comeback player of the year, Flacco. Sure.
Your number 1 defense gave up 30+ points.
And your second best quarterback in the NFL was asked during their Super Bowl run. So we could do this too. I'll go back to the Trace take because I don't disagree with Trace whatsoever. And
Yeah, I
now-
think it's a crazy take.
And now I get that. Bengals fans would find that crazy.
what's the Trace take?
That the kicker and the defense carried them to that Super Bowl that year, which was not a bad take at all on Trace's part.
And Tom Brady won how many Super Bowls carried by a kicker and a defense? So
Yeah, I mean,
Statistically, Joe Burrow was not good in that playoff run.
okay, it got to Super Bowl. Doesn't matter.
yeah.
So
It
Deshaun
doesn't-
Watson doesn't have to.
either side.
So the Browns have a great kicker and they have a great defense. So statistically,
I don't think
Deshaun
Deshaun Watson's going to
doesn't
get you
have
to the playoffs. Is the thing.
Deshaun Watson was trending towards getting him to the playoffs last year
He didn't.
because he was hurt.
Right. If Burrow's hurt, the Bengals aren't going to make the playoffs either.
And they didn't, but the Browns did because they have a better team.
I would rather be picking 18 than make the playoffs and get blown out in the first round. Improve the team for the next year.
Okay, I know. You like losing. We've established that. We've established
Just
that.
big picture.
Man, it's going to suck for you Bengals fans this year when the Browns are just better. It's as simple as that. Deshaun
That'd be
Watson's
shocking.
healthy.
That'd be
The
shocking.
Browns as a whole are better than the Cincinnati Bengals.
That would be shocking.
You lose your quarterback, and their offense is still explosive. Their defense is still elite. Great special teams. You lose your quarterback, and you miss the playoffs
That's right.
because the
do
Browns
you-
have a better team.
Do you view the Browns as the second best team in the division or the best?
I think if Deshaun Watson plays well, they're the best team in the division.
Okay, that's fair.
Why is that funny?
think
Elite
that's
defense,
hilarious. I
elite
think-
defense,
yeah.
elite run game,
No.
elite pass game. What are you wanting? What more would you want? If
Elite
Deshaun Watson
defense
is
is
healthy and
definitely
playing
true.
well, what more do you want?
Elite defense is definitely true. They've shown they can run the ball without Nick Chubb, so I don't really worry about if Nick Chubb comes back and he's not great. I don't really worry about that. I just think like the Ravens are pretty damn good.
Ravens, Browns are the best two teams in that division. Until Joe Burrow. I mean, if we're going to do the what ifs with Deshaun, I'll do the what ifs with Joe Burrow. Can he stay healthy?
Yeah,
Joe
I
Burrow's
get
played
that.
more games in the league since he came in than Deshaun has since 2020.
I'm just
Coming off a
preseason-
season-ending injury.
Preseason, I kind of just throw all like potential injuries out of the picture or stuff like that. Just looking at what's on paper right then. You know, like Joe Burrow is the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals right now. And I understand that he's had injury concerns and he could get injured again, but I don't really want to think, oh, the Browns are better because what if Joe Burrow gets hurt? You know?
Oh, well, we'll see. It's all right. You guys are all wrong. I'm right. Browns better than the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's okay. But I get why you guys don't want to believe that, and that's totally fine. But at least that, you know, you guys win in numbers. You guys have all the numbers on this side. But I can't wait for when the season finally gets here. I'm just being patient.
Oh, yeah, I'll be floored if the
I
Browns
am
are better
just
than the
sitting
Bengals.
here being patient. I'm not going to get mad. I'm just like, that's fine. I'm
the fun thing
going
is-
home. I'm clipping all your takes. I have a folder on my
I
laptop.
think the world would be floored, though, if the Browns are better than the Bengals this year. Everyone.
The world would be floored. A team that has a better defense, better offensive line, better run game, better special teams, better, outside of quarterback and wide receiver, better tight end. What are we
Any
doing?
odds or projections have the Browns finishing third in the division? The general sentiment is that they're distantly the third team.
Distantly.
Distantly.
And
The
that's
Bengals are
great.
plus 165, the Ravens are plus 120, the Browns are plus 500. That's pretty distant.
But then-
I'm clipping this. I love this. I'm just
Well, that's just
clipping all
numbers.
this.
That's just
I'm
numbers.
I'm
But
clipping all
then
this.
they're just going to split in the regular season. It's going to solve nothing.
Oh, if the Browns win both games, it doesn't matter because the Browns won
Yeah.
both games. We made it to the Super Bowl. So
You did indeed. They have their starting quarterback that season. You did indeed.
that's right. Our starting quarterback elevates our team.
And when the starting quarterback for the Browns is out there, they win. 5-2 last year before he went out for the season. If Joe Burrow goes 5-2, we're having to get paper towels to clean up this whole room. Let's just be real. What are we cleaning up? I don't know. We'll be right back. More
Joe
off
Burrow's
the-
won playoff games.
Uh-huh.
Deshaun.
Deshaun has won playoff games
In
in the
Houston.
past. In Houston.
Yeah.
2 years into Cleveland. It's been a rocky little start. He hasn't been out there. We all are in agreement. He has to be out. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll be right back. All right, off the bench. Welcome back. Jimmy, Casey, Elliot, Jacob, and myself. Everyone's mad at me right now. That's okay. That's okay. But Cincinnati
I'm
Bengals.
not mad at you.
I think
I'm not
we
mad
all
at you
agree
either.
The Cincinnati Bengals closer to a Super Bowl than missing the playoffs, correct?
Yeah.
I think, is that a unanimous take in this room? Not surprised,
Yes.
but I'm pretty sure that's a unanimous take.
What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. They should.
Yeah.
They got Joe Burrow. Jesus prays to Joe Burrow.
That seems like blasphemy.
Well, I went to Mass last weekend, and it was just Joe Burrow statues everywhere.
That
It was
seems
the
like
weirdest.
blasphemy.
I'm just very confused because you've already stated that the Browns roster is better than every other team in the AFC North, but yet you think that they can't make the Super Bowl, but the Bengals can? That's very confusing.
Because we're going with, I know who Joe Burrow is. I know what Deshaun's capable of, but he has to be out there.
Those two don't
I think,
really...
well,
Yeah.
the division is very, very good. I think
But the Bengals play in the same division.
Right. No, I'm saying all those teams, I think.
So you're mad that I'm picking the Bengals to?
Yeah,
make-
he
it
said the
doesn't-
Browns are closer, and he's saying the Bengals are closer too to Super Bowl.
I said I'm meeting you guys in the halfway point of Deshaun, has to be out there, and until I visually see that, I can't put them closer to the Super Bowl. But like Deshaun, he's out there; they're closer to the Super Bowl.
It requires a version of Deshaun to be out there that we have not seen yet.
We have seen it. He's just not with Cleveland. But
Right.
again, we look back, first 2 years, obviously his fault. I'm making excuses for that. It's why it was a controversial get for the Cleveland Browns. Then he has a full camp. He goes out there. The Browns are playing well. They dominate to start the season. They lose him. They go through a little dicey stage. They get Joe Flacco and take back off again. It just proves they just need competent quarterback play. Not even elite quarterback, competent quarterback play. And this team is one of the best in the NFL.
You need a shell of Houston Deshaun Watson, which is attainable.
I guess the main argument is
you get that Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
It's not even a debate who's the best team in the AFC.
the main argument is that I don't think they were a Super Bowl contender last year, and I think that's the area Deshaun.
They
pulls
weren't a
them
Super
into.
Bowl contender because why? They had when Joe Flacco
Because
took over.
I never thought for a second they could win the Super Bowl.
So let me get this straight. If you actually use logic with football, when the Joe Flacco took over, the Browns were the best passing team in football.
Okay.
They had the best defense in football,
Sure.
top 10 run game,
Yeah.
and top 5 special teams What about that is not a Super Bowl
Joe
contender?
Flacco at quarterback was not going to win you a Super Bowl.
Oh,
And
really?
it showed up in
the
the
guy
first
that's
round.
actually won a Super Bowl before.
How long ago? A decade?
What
12
does that
years
matter?
last year?
What does that matter?
I think it matters for everyone except Tom Brady.
No, I think anyone with the brain that saw Joe Flacco last year with the Browns saw that Joe Flacco was actually better than the Joe Flacco that won the Super Bowl for the Ravens.
I think everyone that saw Joe Flacco last year realized that exactly what was going to happen in the first round.
No,
happened
you
in
were
the
hoping.
first round.
And that's why you
I
guys
bought-
enjoyed.
what happened
That's
was-
why.
what happened was the
That
projection.
is why the biggest win for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2023 was the Browns' loss in the playoffs.
Well, the biggest
That
win for the
is
Browns
why.
every year is beating the Bengals in the regular season. So
No,
what are we
it's
doing?
Actually, not.
I-
It's not. It's enjoyable.
I would say if you've made the Super Bowl as a quarterback before, I think you can win no
Joe
matter what.
Flacco was not burning the world down last year. He had a decent year as a comeback player. He was not going to win a Super Bowl. That's crazy.
Reed says Joe Flacco looked booty cheeks.
Yes.
He did,
Thank
bruh.
you,
He
Reed.
did.
Appreciate
He was
that.
terrible.
He
So
was
we're
very
basing
bad.
everything off of the last
What do you
game of
think,
the
Elliot?
season.
I bought into the Cleveland Browns towards the end of last year. I thought Joe Flacco was a serviceable quarterback, and with the roster around him, with how they played, I thought they could have competed for a Super Bowl. Yes, I was not out on them
Because of the defense.
also in the postseason were the Pittsburgh Steelers, who nobody bought. Right? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't
There's
think
a lot of teams in the postseason
I don't
that
think
can't win
anybody.
a Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, maybe if you want to use that logic. I just thought that the Browns ended their season pretty well. I thought their offense was clicking. It looked like they were clicking. I remember watching that Thursday night game against the Jets, and I'm like, this offense looks legit. Now, the issue with Joe Flacco last year was that those turnovers were the worst of all time. He could throw 5 touchdowns, but he might answer it with 5 interceptions in the same game. So, yeah, I bought in personally just because I saw him down the stretch, and I liked what I saw.
Reed's argument is that you guys beat a non-playoff Jags team in prime time with your backup
That game was
quarterback.
incredible.
That game was a
That
great
game
game.
rocked,
That game
yeah.
was an awesome game.
We beat the Niners. That was a team that was in the Super Bowl with our backup quarterback. So
Yeah, we beat the Niners too. It was a great win.
We blew him out,
Yeah.
in fact.
with your starter.
Well, he's just listing wins that are bigger for the Bengals than a Browns playoff.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I mean, then why was a last-place loser team like the Bengals, who wasn't in the playoffs last year, why was my phone blowing up when the Browns got knocked out of the playoffs? When
You don't
guys
like
were
to
all at
root
home
for your
watching?
rivals to lose? That's sports. You don't root for your rivals to lose?
So the Browns are your rival?
Yes. Every team in the AFC North is a rival.
Cute.
It's the division.
Cute. I mean, I don't look at a team that can't beat my team as a rival, but that's cute.
Again, regular season wins are all that matter.
Cute.
I mean, I think
Cute.
I think the Packers fans still view the Bears as a rival, and they beat them
No
every
question
year.
about it. Yeah.
Cute. Cute. It's adorable.
To
I
act
can't
like divisional opponents aren't rivals in the NFL is incredible. That's crazy.
And obviously, there are going to be some that are bigger rivals than others. Like,
Yeah, the Steelers and the Ravens are bigger rivals than the Browns for the Bengals. But
Yeah.
the Browns are still a rival. You play in the same state, you're in the same division.
yeah.
Cute.
When you go to the games, do you bark?
I'm just going to start saying
Little
cute
yaps.
every time I go.
I don't like that at all. I don't like
Oh,
the cute
Casey,
at
me
all.
and you, we're going to be throwing down this upcoming season. I could feel it already. This season just needs to get here. It just needs.
Roger says, what is the topic?
What is? I don't even know. I'm
Let's
pissed
talk the
off and
Reds.
thrown off. I'm completely rattled right now.
I was on your side.
yeah.
I was on your side there. I think the Browns are pretty good.
I think the
they're-
Browns are- yeah.
I think they're pretty good, and it comes down to if Deshaun Watson can be a good quarterback, which unfortunately for the Browns, he hasn't been. Objectively, he's been bad.
And that, no
He has been
arguments
available.
here. He has not been.
I'm not ready to say that they're Super Bowl contenders, but I think they're.
Why are
very
they not?
team. Because I just think the Ravens and the Bengals are so good. Like, I think they're Super Bowl contenders. It's kind of tough for me to say 3 out of the 4 teams in the division are Super Bowl contenders. They're playoff teams for sure.
So the Bengals, the Browns' defense is better. The run game's better. The offensive line's better. Tight end's better. All of that. So Joe Burrow and the wide receivers are why they are better than the Cleveland
It's a
Browns.
quarterback league.
Well, the quarterback. I mean, how come your quarterback hasn't won a Super Bowl then?
Has Deshaun?
No. But the
So-
Browns, it's the team thing. Though. We're talking about the team.
No, I know.
The Bengals as a team is not more talented than the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I understand what you're saying.
I just don't.
Quarterback's
get
a heavily weighted position.
I just think-
everything's not equal. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. You need the defense, though. Your defense is not as good as you guys
A
think.
bad
it is.
a bottom third defense with a top 5 quarterback can win a Super Bowl before a top 10 defense
Go
and a
look
bottom
at the
third
last
quarterback.
bottom third defense that has won a Super Bowl.
But you got to get there to win.
Go look at the. But that's not the point.
I'm not.
I don't
gonna-
think the Browns can
Oh,
get there. I think
look at the
Bengals
teams
can
that have
get there.
recently won Super Bowls. They're all dominant defenses. You need the
100%.
one thing you need. So to sit there and say that you don't need a defense to win, that's not true.
When's
You
the last
need-
team
It
that
is
got there without a
definitely
dominant
true,
quarterback?
I mean, there's way more examples of that than what you're
Who
alluding
hasn't
to.
had a dominant
I
quarterback?
mean, look, Joe Flacco wasn't considered elite when the Ravens won the Super Bowl.
Okay, that's
that year.
12 years ago. Let's talk about this era.
This era, I mean, Tom Brady wasn't elite in the last Super Bowl run.
Tom Brady with the
Peyton
Buccaneers
Manning
was
wasn't the
statistically
last
best.
for, of course, when the Broncos won it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Who else? Peyton Manning.
Again, but every elite one of those quarterbacks has to have defense. Your team doesn't have defense.
But you can't get there without an elite quarterback, is what I'm saying.
But you, again, more obsession with losing. You just want to get there to lose instead of get there to win.
I
My
think
team's built to get there
The
to win.
team that's
Your
closer
team's
to the
not.
Super Bowl is the team that can get there, not the team that can't get there.
Is it time for the UDF cherry on top?
Nate. Well, what about the Reds?
What about the Reds? Let's talk about the Reds.
Let's talk Reds. Elliot, let's talk about the What are we talking about with the Reds?
I would like
Their defense stinks too.
The Reds' defense.
It's pretty bad.
Defense is woeful. I can't help that. Yeah, the Reds are beating a really, really bad team. A really bad team. The Marlins are atrocious, and the Reds are making them look atrocious. So good on the Cincinnati Reds. Hopefully you can finish this off with a sweep because, quite honestly, it should be.
If you can't sweep the Marlins.
Yeah, I mean it's a 4-game sweep, but it would so that's I guess a little tougher. But
Have you looked at
They
that?
traded everyone.
yeah, it's at the end of the day they don't have
That's
they,
true.
they don't have players. So I saw my takeaway from every night, and I think Reed kind of started being woke on this is whenever Elly has games or stretches like this, there are people who go on Twitter and woefully go back and find receipts of anybody that's ever had a doubt about him and share the screenshots.
Who could that be?
Well, I'm going to say one. Shout out to our good friend Reds Daily because he was doing it last night.
He was.
He was finding screenshots from random accounts from 3 months ago when Elly was struggling for that 1 week. And they were overreacting and saying he wasn't. Here's the thing: if you're going to overreact and say the Reds are really good, and they're playing really good baseball against objectively a bottom 3 team in baseball, bottom 4 team in baseball, you can also overreact and have night by night reactions to Elly De La Cruz. I think that's fair. I think you can have fair. I think should anybody doubt Elly De La Cruz after this season? Absolutely not. No, there's no more room for doubt after this year. But I think coming in, this was his first full season. Towards the beginning, it looked like he was making silly mistakes again for that really just that one game. And he's made some silly mistakes along the way. He's a plus defender. He's a plus offensive player. He's a weapon. He's a superstar, generational. I don't think it's necessary to go back and fault anybody who had an overreaction for one game when really that's what we do here at this company.
Right.
I come in every day for the show and I have an overreaction with every single win and every single loss. It's part of the job, and I'm not going to fault the average casual fan for doing the same thing at home.
Having doubt in De La Cruz coming in, it was never anyone saying, "Oh, he's not good at all." I think it was fair to have doubt of Elly coming in just because of how hot he got to start last year and how much he cooled off heading in to the offseason. I think it was fair to have doubt. I don't think anyone – were you – and again, I wasn't here at the beginning. Were you here saying Elly is overrated, Elly is not good?
I never once said Elly is overrated.
What did you say?
I said I was concerned that Elly was not going to be a good defender. That's what I said at shortstop. That's what I said at the beginning of the year. I said it seems like he makes silly mistakes. And by the way, he still has. The issue is if you're on that side of the world, he can make so many better plays. He runs into left field, center field, all around the diamond. He throws 115 to first base. He makes up for the silly mistakes with the exceptional athleticism and superstardom that he has available to him. And maybe that's what I didn't see at the beginning of the year. And that's hand up. I was wrong. I think he's a great defender. But I never once was out there saying Elly can't hit, Elly can't play, Elly's a very good player. His plate discipline has been incredibly improved this season. He's walked a lot more. I thought he's been more productive all the way around. And you can't argue it based on every statistic that's out there. So, yeah, I think he should finish in top 3 of MVP voting, top 4 maybe. And he's had a great year. I just don't think it's necessary to make fun of people who overreact when it's my job to overreact on a night-in, night-out basis.
I just don't think that was an overreaction. I don't. I really don't. At least, now, if you have that same take heading into next year, I would say, but, the guy didn't even play a 462-game regular season, so, I don't look at any doubt for any rookie player
Yeah.
as an overreaction.
By the way, Ned Flanders with a good super chat, $4.99. Now that David Bell has coached Elly into becoming a superstar, should he be extended for another 2 years?
David Bell's done a great job
That's
with
a fun take. That's a fun take.
Elly he really put Elly in position the last 2 nights just to dominate.
That's right.
I will say, it is really funny.
Finally told him to get 4 hits. Why didn't he use that trick earlier?
It is really funny, like going into this Marlins series, people were saying they're kind of fed up and done on the season, and then they win the first 2 games, and everyone's like, well, if they sweep and then we win the next 2 series, we're back in business. It's like, come on, guys. Like,
Yeah,
But also not wrong. If
They're
we
not-
sweep the next 3 series, we are back.
Oh, sure.
They're not.
I
But
just
it's like, come
I
on.
think people have fun with the plus 41 run differential.
differential.
And yeah, when you beat up the trash of the league, that run differential might help you out. And you can argue, I saw the argument, the reverse argument to that as well. Not every team does that. Not every team beats the crap out of all the trash in the league. And whatever, you can say whatever you want. I just think a plus 41 run differential doesn't tell the whole story.
To me, David Bell
of this
said it
season.
best. A loss is a loss.
A loss is a loss.
And that means a win's a win.
That's correct. That's right. And that's 100% right. Justin Edgel, $4.99 super chat, took a gummy last night, had a wild dream that I was arrested for felonious assault and fired from my job. Stay off the weed. Stay off the weed. But yeah, the Reds are going to continue to play this series. I hope they sweep them. I hope they win out. I don't cheer against the Reds. I'm just not going to get my hopes up. I'm going to try to not live on a game-to-game basis and get excited because at the end of the day, they haven't been very good in the back half of this season. I think that's a fair statement when you get swept by the Nationals to start everything. When you lose to the Rays after Hunter Green gives you 7 or 8 dominant innings of shutout baseball and you still can't find ways to win, it's tough for me to sit here and say, you know what, I believe in them. I believe in them.
So the Reds, they made up with the back-to-back wins in this series. They've made up a game. They were 6.5 out to start the series. Now 5.5 back. It's one thing to keep an eye on what the Reds are doing, but keeping an eye on what the other teams who are in position to get that final wild card spot too. I mean, this is why yesterday when I said the Reds could get within 2 games of the wild card, I know everyone sold that, but it's like I'm buying it just because the Reds have been so damn streaky, but so is the rest of the league. You look at the Atlanta Braves; they're
dropping like rocks.
Yeah, they've lost 3 straight. They're 6-4 in their last 10. The Mets are 4-6 in their last 10. The Cardinals are 5-5, and the Pirates are 4-6. The only team that's hot right now, and they're still inconsistent, that's the Giants. They're 7-3 in their last 10, but 3 of those wins came in that sweep against the Reds. The only reason, but this is where the Reds have to get hot because you can't be average while everyone else is being average. You can't be playing 500 ball while everyone else is playing 500 ball. They have to get hot. They need to get hot, and maybe, and I sound like a fool for doing this again because I've done this all season with this. Maybe this is the springboard to that. But this team has yet to prove this year that they could take advantage of any opportunity that's been laid out in front of them to take advantage of bad teams. You have 2 more with the Marlins. You have the Cubs coming up around the corner, who they're technically ahead of in the standings. 5.5 back of the wild card. Every team in front of them right now is playing poorly, just based at least on the small sample size of the last 10. But they need to capitalize on that, no doubt about it.
Unfortunately, the Reds struggled against the Mets. They struggled against the Pirates. They've struggled against the Giants this season.
The Brewers.
The Brewers.
They won't be in there.
That's a different thing. I'm just talking about the wild card teams.
Oh.
They've struggled against most of them except for the Atlanta Braves, and that's just a very small sample size, 2 games. So, yeah, I'm not going to rule the season dead. I'm just not going to sit here and say, you know what, the Reds are going to make the playoffs. I believe in them, and yada yada yada. They've got a couple of very, very, very good baseball players on this team that need a little bit of more help surrounding them, and until they get that help, I'm not going to sit here and believe that they're a playoff team. But yeah, they're what? What did you say? 5 games back? 5.5
and
games
you have
back?
you have 2 series against St. Louis in the next month. You have a series against Pittsburgh, and you have a series against the Mets. So
There's enough time to make up the ground.
If you want to get hot,
Yeah.
do it and beat those teams, and you'll have a real chance.
Maybe Tucker Barnhart's the key that we've been missing.
That's right.
I kind of like that. I mean, not for anything
Big
of
Tuck.
an impact, but I mean, I like Tucker. I was a Tucker fan. I understood why they moved on from him, but
Yeah,
Reds-
stop
the
bringing
Red-
back Joey too.
The Reds, yeah.
We're just giving out
the
tickets.
Reds' success to winning, it's clear, and it's Tyler Stephenson. That's the one thing I'll
Right.
add to end this.
Yeah.
They're 14 games above 500 when that guy plays.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Tucker Barnhart ever play. And that's no knock on Tucker Barnhart. It's just because Tyler Stephenson's been good. I doubted Tyler Stephenson coming into this year. When I do my end of the season apologies, he'll probably be number 1 because he's been incredible. An above average catcher.
He's improved literally everything.
Power numbers are way up. I think his plate discipline's been way up.
Yep.
He looks more confident. Defensively, it's been night and day. So, yeah, I shout out to Tyler Stephenson because he's been absolutely incredible this year, and he's been a large part of why the pitching staff has been successful and why the Reds have at least not been ruled dead yet.
All right. As we sit here right now, the Reds, with this remaining schedule, or at least this immediate schedule coming up as we wrap up the radio side, 2 more with the Marlins. It's not the Cubs coming up. My bad. It's the Brewers coming up. They're at Milwaukee, but then they return home. The Cardinals, Kansas City. They got Toronto and Pittsburgh coming up, and then they close out the month with the Oakland A's. So they have an opportunity, but they've had opportunities that they've squandered in the past. But I'm going to continue to try to be as optimistic as possible. I think that there is a window here that if they capitalize on it, maybe, just maybe, Elliott will bring the season back to life.
100%.
100%.
If you would have won a game against the Nationals, if you would have beaten the Giants, if you would have beaten the Rays, I would have been all the way back in. It's not what happened.
And this stretch could just make us really hate the Reds coming up, or love them.
It could.
100%. All right, that wraps it up on the radio side. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, it's Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Jacob, we have a
cherry
special
on
premiere.
top. I don't know if it's official cherry on top or not. Oh, it is an official cherry on top. Look at that. I know you all have missed it, so here we go. So this clip was posted by Colorado Football, captioned, "Dots only." Talking about Shedeur Sanders making this touchdown pass, saying it's a great pass. Everyone watch this clip. Throws it to the front corner of the end zone, and then it's caught in the back corner of the end zone. Colorado social media seems to be editing their player highlights to make Shedeur Sanders' incomplete passes look like completions.
No.
That ball was headed clear out of bounds.
Can I see a replay of it?
What is happening? Yeah, So
Shedeur drops back to throw this ball.
Okay.
He throws it to the front corner of the end zone, and it's caught in the middle of the end zone by a different receiver.
And you can see the receiver, too, trying to turn back around to get the ball, and he's not even close.
It's not even close.
I mean, this is some impressive stuff. I mean, there's been a lot of embarrassing things that have surrounded this Colorado program as of late, but my goodness.
Insanity.
I mean, look, it's buffering. That's how much editing was done.
They don't even understand what's going on right now. The servers can't compute this much editing.
So, but
have the comments been?
All the comments are, since the caption was dots only, all the comments are edits only. So, no bowl games only.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to me.
Social media clips.
4 wins only.
4 wins.
Was there no other touchdown passes during practice?
Well, that was my question.
Probably get sacked
is this
every
the
time he drops
only
back.
touchdown pass, quote unquote, that Shedeur threw? Yeah, just absolutely insane. I don't know if other schools are just better at this, and maybe this is a thing that happens everywhere, but I've never seen an edit this bad. It jumped off the page to me. I mean, it's not even the same receiver, much less the same place on the field.
Colorado's a mess
that's
right now.
insanity.
You have one player who, again, take this with a grain of salt too, because some players who've been cut from the program, are they disgruntled or are they actually revealing what's actually happening? Former Colorado players are slamming the state of the program. One player claims that it's full of fights, money, and guns. Another says a star recruit threatened to kill one of Deion Sanders' sons.
Oh, very nice.
I mean,
Seems like that's going great.
I think Hard Knocks needs to go the college route and just follow whatever team Deion has.
I'm
'cause
taking
that would
them
be-
to not make a bowl game again. Run it back.
Last year I took their under wins, which is a disappointing loss because had they not barely beaten Colorado State or won the first game, they were 20-point underdogs. Would have won, but they.
Chase just asked a good question in the chat. What was on the back of their jerseys?
Oh,
well, if you wonder what any good program does, they put their social media handles on the back of their jerseys. So
Are you
that in
serious?
clips
I
and
didn't even
everything-
see that.
Yeah. It's so that if
so
you're watching
bad.
a clip of practice, you can follow the guys on social media, just like any good program does. A big time focus on growing your social media.
I would not have
I
been
didn't
a
even
fan of
see
that.
that.
Oh yeah.
If a big program did that, I would mock it, but I would just kind of let it go. But when you add that to the many bullet points of noise coming out of that. No pun intended, apparently, with some of the stuff coming out. But here's a list of here are a couple of quick hitters as far as the noise coming out of the offseason for Colorado. Dion actively complaining about video game ratings. Very, very upset about the video game ratings.
Yikes.
Shador Sanders trying to launch a rap career. And then punishing the teammates. You had Dion punishing teammates who did not go to Shador Sanders' first concert. Literally had to run laps if they did not go to his concert.
His son's concert. What is this?
Dion has you are punished if you miss practice, but he gave a pass to Shador and Shiloh who went to, was it Fashion Week?
That's right.
They did the fashion show. They
That's
were
right.
excused for that.
The fashion show with NFL players who have already made their name and signed their contracts and developed themselves inside the sport. Yeah, these two guys who played a year at a FCS school and then have now debuted with 6 games, 3 wins. Woohoo!
Getting in
Colorado. Let's go walk in Fashion Week. Yeah,
They were
football.
good. They were a good 3 wins though.
Yeah, Dan Lanning said it best. We play for wins, not clicks. And then Oregon went out and stomped them.
Yeah,
That's right.
I have to admit something. I was pissed at Dan Lanning in Oregon for that. I was big on Colorado last year.
No.
I was like enjoying the hell out of it.
That's like your 7th worst take of the week.
But I checked. 7th? Really? It's worse than that.
pretty low.
No, but I checked out on them very quickly, not just because of the losses, but I'm always like, you learn a lot about teams, not when they're winning, but when they're losing, although they were pretty obnoxious at winning. But you learn a lot about teams when they start losing, and then you had Dion kind of going to the media and gaslighting everybody like we're the crazy ones. When he kept doing I told you, he was doing the whole I told you tour for the first 3-4 weeks of the season, and then after that it's, we're still couple dogs away.
Travis would have caught that ball. The Heisman be in his crib chilling. Brother
It's just
finished
wild.
top 10.
But so on this list, it's putting the social media handles on jerseys, as you talked about, arguments over people transferring. You had when one of his sons was playing the video game, they said, is this game realistic? And he goes, oh, yes, this offensive line is terrible. It's been a loud off season for Colorado. I don't know how. Is Dion the head coach of this team? Are we talking about Dion in Colorado?
Well, everyone knows he wants to come to Cincinnati. So
That's right.
He might get out of there and take that UC job and move on from Sac.
He'd love it. By the way, Sean Connor put in here, and not to go back to a previous discussion.
No, are we done with the Browns now?
No, but he said it, and I have to read it. At Reed Mouse, true or false? Week 14, 15, 16, 17, Joe Flacco threw for 1,362 yards, scored 124 points, went 4-0, and took the Browns from 7-5 to 11-5, which secured their spot into the postseason.
True.
That's true. It happened.
It did. Very average, though. He's not impressed.
He looked good. Come on.
Worse than what he did. To say he was better than Baltimore Flacco's insane.
I didn't say he was better than
He did.
Baltimore Flacco. Oh.
That was the best 4 game. That was, yes, all those numbers, everything was better than at any point during. And he was great. And that's the thing. He was sneaky good with Baltimore. Everyone just kind of labeled him as like a game manager with Baltimore. But he's, as far as passing yards are concerned, it was great. But just look at his yards per game. He was the only quarterback throwing for over 300 yards a game in that stretch.
Yeah, and 3 interceptions a game? What are we doing here?
So when Joey Godborough throws interceptions, that's what? It's always everyone else's fault?
I don't say it's the best run of his career.
Huh?
When he has bad games, I don't say it's the best 4-game run of his career.
It was the best 4 game. That's not an opinion. That was the graphic that was used throughout the playoff, when the build up to that playoff game.
Right. Statistically, against the Jags team
yes.
who was tanking,
You're Mr.
no
You're Mr.
Stroud
Statistician.
Texans. Joe Flacco had better runs in Baltimore. I don't think
Baltimore
that's a
had
crazy
better
take.
runs with him at quarterback, but they didn't have better runs with him at quarterback.
I think he was better in Baltimore.
I know, because you were so jealous of the Cleveland Browns, my dude.
What is there to be jealous
You hate
about?
Cleveland. That's what I want to know, because I'm acknowledging Cleveland's shortcomings, but even when they have success, you guys like to try to find a way
What
to just
success?
water it
We'll see you guys
down.
later.
What are you talking about?
Elliot's out.
Elliot's checking out. Elliot's checking out. He done? He gone? What are we doing?
What are we doing?
I'm very confused. Camera's on Elliot.
Camera's over there.
What are you doing? I just want to know what's happening. So, is this
it was stressing me out, your fight.
You got to get away.
Yeah.
I thought you started a show saying no bits, and then you walk over there for a little bit? Interesting. What time we got? 11:59. All right, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Next time, maybe these guys will be right. Maybe next time I'll get something wrong. I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, these guys will finally figure it out. Just joking. Jacob, it's a joke.
I got you.
You're tight-jawed over
feel
there.
like-
I've
You
told
just tune you out when you get on your little shticks.
I mean,
I feel
you
like-
shouldn't tune out because then you might actually learn a couple things.
I feel
Well, I
like
don't-
Elliot and
yeah,
I were
with-
pretty
yeah,
fair
these-
about the Browns.
Yeah.
Huh?
Elliot and I were pretty fair about what we thought about the Browns.
That's the fair section over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, over here.
Not you, not you, not you, Casey.
Yeah,
not
this
you.
Is this section over here.
Jacob's
Keeping
my
it
dude.
real.
And by the way, Jacob and I only fight when Elliot's over here.
That's right.
We got along for that whole week that you were gone. And I don't want you gone. I'm just saying it's a fact. It's like Flacco's best 4-game stretch. It's a fact. Have a good day, everyone. This has been Off the Bench presented by United.
Did you read Everett's comments? Everett's comments are great.